And welcome everyone to Truth in Movies. I'm JayDreamerZ, and today we're breaking down the movie The Giver. Let me tell you something about our world real quick. We have forgotten so many things in this world, not just ancient history from a long time ago. We can't even remember what we had for breakfast 6 or 7 days ago. You know what I mean? The memory is terrible. The actual physical memories that we're able to hold, our short-term and our long-term memories, are kind of messed up. This movie is going to touch on memory and specifically memory loss of the entire world, worldwide amnesia, and the few people, the very few of us, who thankfully are starting to remember. All right, well, hello to everybody in the chat. I see you guys. It was nice chatting with you beforehand. We're going to jump right into this movie. It's very dystopian, and if you don't know what dystopian means, basically it's like the opposite of a utopia. So like a utopia is a perfect society, a dystopia is not one you want to be in, kind of like these days. All right, let's see what we got here. So from the very beginning of the movie, it says, from the ashes of ruin, the communities were built, protected by the boundary. This is post-apocalyptic. This is a post-apocalyptic world after some sort of ruin. They don't tell us. The movie doesn't go into any detail, which I love. I love it when they don't give us all of the information because it turns into a riddle, and I love riddles. From the ashes of ruin, the apocalypse, the communities were built. So they rebuilt after some sort of an apocalyptic scenario, and they called their new areas where they live the communities. And these communities were protected by something called the boundary. There's a boundary around these communities. We're going to see more about that in a little bit later in the movie. All memories of the past were erased. So after this apocalyptic event in the movie, all memories of the past were erased. People couldn't remember the world that they had come from. They only were conditioned to remember everything afterwards. And the movie tells us why. All right, so we start in the movie. It shows us one of the communities. There's a little close-up view, and it says, after the ruin, we started over. And we were supposed to use... basically, their communities are guided by these rules. Rules like... use precise language, right? They call it precision of language, which on one hand, I can appreciate because I do like when people are precise and they say what they mean. But on the other hand, sometimes you can't be precise. Sometimes precise doesn't work. Sometimes you need a little vagueness, and sometimes the words don't do the feelings and the emotions justice. So the words turn out to be a little vague. And that's okay. As you can see, the movie's in black and white. At least it starts that way. The whole movie isn't black and white. We're going to talk about when the colors pop up and why they pop up. Another rule, wear your assigned clothing. So everyone has a sort of uniform or a uniformity to the clothing that they wear. Take your morning medication. There's a sensor that they put their hand on and it gives them an injection every morning. We're going to find out more about that too. Obey the curfew. Make sure you go to bed on time. And never lie. So these are sort of like the 10 commandments, or 4, 5 commandments, whatever they are, for this new community that's been built. And that brings us to the Giver. Welcome to the Giver. Who is the Giver? Now this is really interesting. I want to go back to the picture at the beginning that I used here. Let me make it a little smaller, because as you can see, the movie poster, they made the V in the Giver way bigger than the rest of the letters. That's very interesting to me, and I'll tell you why. It's because the letter V represents the Vav, or also the number 6, which is the spiral, right? And we talked about the spiral representing the plasma that comes down into our world and shoots up from within the world too. So they capitalize that V, and that's what that is. The V is a symbol for victory. The V is a symbol for the victorious, and essentially those who survived the apocalypse are represented by the letter V themselves. Let's see here. All right, so let's get back to where we were. They said there's all these rules. The Giver's the name of the movie, and we're introduced to the first person. He says, my name is Jonas. Jonas is the main character. Jonas is an interesting guy. Let's talk about the name Jonas real quick. Jonas is directly related to Janus. The Janus is the two-faced god. Usually he's depicted something like this. You know, he's drawn in different ways over time. But usually he's got, you know, his hair and a beard and one face facing one way, so you only see one eye. And then the other face facing the other direction, so you only see the other eye. Now, there's something about this that pops out to me. Let me show you. This symbol right here, as you can see, the beard and the hair, they sort of come together to make the symbol that we call, or that is affectionately known as the squatting man symbol. It's the plasma that shoots up from the middle of the world and branches out. It's the world tree. It's the tree of life, the elixir of life, etc. And then, of course, if you put a couple of dots on each side, you've got the eyes of Janus, the two-faced god, facing one way and facing the other way. This is also DC. So for those of you who see the letters DC popping up a lot in your research or in your everyday lives, I believe that that's where this comes from, the DC. Let's check this out. This is from etymology or etymonline.com. And it says Jonas basically means from Hebrew Yonah, which means dove or pigeon. Very interesting too, because if we go back to the two-faced god, this is also known as the god of doorways. Okay, doorways are huge in this movie. There's so much doorway symbolism. I'm going to show you all of it. But we've got Janus over here, right? And then Jonas, his name in Hebrew means a dove or a pigeon. It's interesting to me because this represents the blue beam that shoots up and it makes these different pictures up in the sky, and we have this cosmic apocalypse and people see all the lights and they interpret them in all these different ways. They get very excited about it. They write these stories about it. Those stories are being picked up by us. We are playing this age-old game of telephone where we heard the whispers from our past, we reinterpret it, and we retell it to someone else who reinterprets it and retells it to someone else. Now the days are coming when the energy is being amplified in our world, where people are getting visions, people are receiving prophecies, people are receiving various elements of the story, aka the truth. Their memories, where some of those memories are returning, and some of us, it blows our mind. We don't even know where it's coming from half the time. And some of the times we almost feel like we don't want it. It's kind of it can be a little overwhelming. But anyway, my point is that this is in reference to the column or the beam. The column is related to the dove and the pigeon. Why? Those words are colomba, or Columbine, or Columbia. That's where we get those words too, as well. The dove is literally dove, or to dive down. These are the birds that usually hang out on the columns, and they dive down to go get their food or whatnot, right? So that's Jonah. But then Jonas, which is his name, Jonas comes from Jonas. You see that right there? Let's check that out. Basically, it's from Jonah or John, okay? His name means John, Oz, strength, right? Oz means strength or strong or powerful. And John is also spelled ion. Isn't that something interesting? An ion, like plasma, right? All right, let's see what else we got here. So here's Jonas. He says, my name's Jonas. I don't have a last name. As well, he shouldn't, right? A last name is not needed if you're the original. Okay, a last name started off as a descriptor for your occupation. One, like if I was Jay, I would be Jay the Dreamer. That's my occupation. Or Jay YouTuber, or whatever it may be, right? People were called their first name, which was a description of them, and then the last name was a description typically of what they did or who they were related to, which family they came from. Now, if you're the original, like the blue beam that shoots up out of the middle of the world from time to time, reinvigorating our world, you don't have a last name. So Jonas wouldn't either, if that's what he represents. He represents a truth seeker. He represents you. He represents me. All of us in this black and white, dense and dull world, this mundane, terribly boring world that we live in my opinion. This is us. We are the lost tribe. We're the lost ones that have this spark of the blue flame inside of us. Something that you can call it whatever you want to, but I call it spirit, right? Soul, passion, that and the spirit and the soul energy that carries a vibration with it that says, I'm good. I desire to give to the world. And that's where this title comes from, is the giver, right? The opposite of that energy is the taker. So there's two elements. There's two types of vibes. There's the giving vibe and there's the taking vibe, right? The ones that take away and the ones that add to. He says, I always felt like I saw things differently. Now he looks up and just for a flash, you see just a flash of green in the trees. It was black and white, but Jonas sees things differently. He doesn't see things always in black and white. Every once in a while, he gets these little flashes of reality, which is the colors in the world. But then, he says, I saw things other people didn't. I never said anything. I didn't want to be different, right? So let me talk about that real quick. This is how we feel as truth seekers. Much of the time, we feel like we're weird. Like, you know what I mean? Who really wants to be weird? Who really wants to be different? But after a while, you bask in that attribute and that quality that sets you apart from everyone else, and you realize that your uniqueness is what makes you you. Otherwise, you're just the same as everyone else, which is okay too. I believe that there's good in all of these things, right? And I also want to throw this out there, since we're just starting off. This movie, I believe, is teaching us balance. Okay, it's going to show us the extremes. It's going to show us the extreme of one type of a world, right? Before the apocalypse, in whenever you have like the red sky or whatnot, and then it's going to show us the other one, the other extreme, right before the apocalypse happens. There's always extremities in these in the energy that is in us and in the world that we live in, right? So we're going to see these two different extremes. You can compare this extreme in this dystopian society to the extreme world that we live in today. All right, so his buddies catch up with them, and their names are Asher and Fiona. It's all still in black and white. Let's check out what Fiona means. We've seen the names. They use a lot of the same names in movies over and over and over again. It's not just because they're popular names. You know, Fiona's really not that popular of a name, at least no place I've ever been, but it's popular in the movies. It's used a lot in the movies. Fiona comes from the same source word as the word vine. So on one hand, we've got Jonas, who sort of represents Janus, the god of doorways, right? The door that allows you to pass from one reality or one living place to another reality or another living place. Then we've got Fiona, whose name means basically a vine. A vine is also what the beam of light is referred to as. It's Jack's beanstalk that shoots up into the sky and spirals up into the heavens, right? And then Asher, or Asher. Asher means happy, right? And true to his name, the movie says Asher was the boy who made everyone laugh. So we've got happiness, the vine, and Jonas, the god of the doorways, right? The god of doors. Now, this is their community. This is community A, or Alpha. And check it out. That's their entire world right there, surrounded by clouds. There's clouds all over the place, and they live on what to me looks like the top of a tree trunk, or the top of a neuron, possibly, depending on how you'd like to look at it. One thing we can say is that world, whatever it is definitely not our typical academic world that we're presented with, right? Look at that. I want to zoom into that real quick so you can see it too. You see how it almost looks like they live on an ancient giant tree, and you've got the bark there around the outside, and it's sort of kind of misshapen all over the place. That is a possibility. And in the middle, look what's right there in the middle. There's a huge dome stadium right there in the middle. And it sort of looks like crop circles all over the place too. Well, we'll see that again. We'll come back to it. Now they give you this shot. You see this shot in the movies quite often. And I believe that it's gone over my head so many times until the one time that I picked up on what they're trying to show us. They will show a shot of the sky where there's trees on either side, because I believe symbolically and subconsciously it harkens to an image, an occult image of the sky itself being ripped apart or the sky opening. For example, the trees would be the darkness of our sky, the blackness underneath the roof of the world. And then the middle part where the light is would be the lights of the heavens or the glory of the heavens and space or whatever you'd like to call it. Space is probably not black, just so you know. It's probably bright and white and shimmering and shining. All right, so we go into one of these birth centers where they, in this world, in this dystopian society, they create babies through genetic manipulation. No one has intimate relationships with others to produce babies. They just create babies in a lab. So here's one of those babies, and he's crying right now. So one of the geneticists walks over and he says, oh, this little guy didn't qualify for tomorrow's ceremony. The ceremony being allowing him to live or killing him, basically. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. He says, be strong, Gabriel. Now, they're not supposed to know the baby's names. They're very far removed away from any type of relationship or family in this particular society. So him calling him by his name is kind of strange in the movie. But because he calls him out by name, that tells us, the viewers, that it's an important name and that we should know more about it, because the name is a description, and that description is going to give us more context as to what the movie is, the deeper story to the movie, the reality. Our reality, really, is what we're talking about. So, Gabriel, he says, sometimes I call him Gabe. I'm going to get to her hair here in a minute. Gabe is the exact same as Geb or Gob or Gab. Somebody who's a gabber is somebody who uses their mouth a lot. They talk a lot. A gobstopper in Willy Wonka is something that stops your mouth from opening or whatever, right? Because you're chewing on it all the time. Gab, Gabe, Gob, Geb, it all means mouth, specifically an open mouth, and all of the implications behind that, meaning to eat, to suck in, to swallow, to breathe in, etc. Geb is also an Egyptian god. And what I find interesting is that Geb is synonymous with Kronos. It says here in Greco-Roman Egypt, Geb was equated with the Greek god Kronos. Now, we all know that Kronos was famous for eating his own children after they were born, sucking them up, and then regurgitating them, spitting them back out. Now, Kronos and Geb, they are sky gods. So something up in the sky opens up, looks like a mouth, sucks everybody up, the children of that god, and then the event is over with and everything falls or floats back down to the world. And that's the name of the baby that they give. Now, check this out. Jonas glances over at this girl that he has a crush on, Fiona, and he sees a slight streak of red in her hair. And it just flashes real quick. We're going to talk about the color being restored as well. All right, so these three, they go on a walk through the park or whatever. And Asher's telling a joke. He's the funny one, right? And he's telling this joke and he says, "Who am I? Get it? Get it?" Like he forgot who he was. This concept of forgetting is all throughout the movie because people have lost their memories. But specifically forgetting who you are. Forgetting your purpose. Okay? Forgetting your purpose, forgetting who you are, forgetting who we are. Why are we here, right? Are we here to go to Walmart, get some groceries, go home, clean the house, go to sleep, wake up, drink some coffee, go to work? I don't believe that. That's not what I feel that I'm here for. I feel that I'm here to live, to experience, that there should be an element of risk and danger to life, which is, for me, what makes life exciting. But anyway, these three are on the walk, and they make a reference to forgetting who they are through a joke that Asher tells. And the truth is said in jest quite often, as they say. All right, so they get to this interesting thing. This is a little triangle fountain type deal that they made. And this is their meeting place. This is like a little secret meeting place where no one else can really see them. They go through this waterfall and they end up inside of this triangle. The triangle itself, right? I'm gonna tell you exactly what the triangle symbolizes. They go 1, 2, 3, and then they all go through the waterfall. They pass through the water and they end up in the triangle. I'll just tell you that the triangle in ancient languages, specifically Phoenician and Hebrew, represents a door, right? So we're talking about how this movie shows you a lot of doorway symbolism. This is one of the first ones. They're going to show you a lot of triangles in this movie too. It's the letter Dalet. And it means a door, an opening, specifically like usually an open door. So they go through the open door, and then he says, they're talking about how they're such good friends. And he's like, quick question, who are we? Asher's joking around again, but he's talking about not knowing who they are. He's asking them what their identity is, but he's joking. Maybe he's tapping into something subconsciously, which I also believe many of us do, especially those of you who are artists of various types. Whenever you allow yourself to be open to your creative side, I believe that many of us tap into the secrets of the ether that are out there because everything is connected. All right, so we go back to Jonas's family unit, right? We go back to his place where he lives, and Katie Holmes is like his mom in the movie, and she says, oh, the dad is like, what was they're talking about the kid, see that little girl right there? They're talking about her teacher, and they had to let go of the teacher. The teacher messed up somehow, right? And they said that the teacher was released to elsewhere, right? And then the little girl, they make elsewhere. What is elsewhere? They make elsewhere sound like it's this awesome paradise, this awesome place where old people get to retire to, and sometimes young babies get to go there and stuff if they're not fit for living in the communities. And so the kid doesn't know any better. She's like, Mom, can I be released to elsewhere? And they're joking around. No, you're much too young, Lily Billy. Her name's Lily, right? Lily is also an interesting name. Lily means white, pure, and lovely. I've noticed that a lot of characters in the movies are named after something that means or implies light, white, beautiful, or pure. All of those, by extension related to each other. Very interesting. I just want to also reiterate this, not Caucasian per se, but white, pure, and lovely like a light, like a pure light. So they're joking around. Lily wants to go elsewhere as well, like her teacher did. Elsewhere is not a place you want to go. We'll talk about what elsewhere is. Now they say, Jonas, it's your turn to share your feelings. This is what they do every night at dinner time. They sit there and they share their feelings. And he says, well, I guess I'm sort of terrified, right? He's about to go to his little graduation ceremony for his high school and be assigned his career for the rest of his life. So that's why he's terrified. The mom is like, precision of language, right? That's not very specific, saying that you're terrified, right? They need specifics. So he says, well, when you were about to graduate, did you ever feel like there was no position that was meant for you? How about many of us? Haven't we felt this way? Right? It could be in school. Everyone's asking you as a child, what would you like to be when you grow up? What do you want to be? What are you going to be? I feel like that's so backwards. You already are. Okay? You don't need to develop into what you're going to be. You already are. Right? They're talking about what kind of a slave job would you prefer to have? That's basically what we mean when we ask children, what are you going to be? We're trying to prepare them for slavery, right? We're trying to see where they might fit in the community. Well, guess what, world? We don't all fit in, right? Not everyone is a triangle shape or a square shape or a circle shape. Some of us are different shapes, and we don't fit in those boxes that you have ready for us. So Jonas doesn't feel like he fits in. He's kind of worried about where they're going to stick him. And then the mom says the elders are never wrong. So she's very much like somebody who has been brainwashed. They're super convinced that the government that they have are the good guys and they have their best interest at heart. They don't ever lie. She just fully gives her blind trust to the government in this movie. The whoever's in charge, the elders, they call them, right? All right, so this is the middle. This is that dome I was showing you, and there's this like ring, this half of a ring. If you look at this from the top-down view, it would almost look like the planet Saturn or something too. But there's this dome and this interesting little conveyor belt thing that goes over it. We're going to see that in here in a minute too. They say, welcome to the annual ceremony of advancement. Now look at the crowd. The crowd itself is making the shape of an unfinished pyramid. They're all wearing the same colors, and they're waiting to see what jobs people are assigned. And then this lady just materializes out of nowhere, and she says, good morning, community. They say, "Good morning, Chief Elder." Everyone talks all at the same time. They're very conditioned, right? And she's the Chief Elder. She is the woman who is in charge of this world. Now, it's interesting, too, that they chose a woman instead of a man, a male, right? In the world that we live in today, we have a very male-dominant energy everywhere. And that's why we have so many males who typically across time have been in charge, in control, at the top, right? But that female energy is getting ready to return. So the movie's cluing us in on what we're looking at. What age? Are we looking at the present? Are we looking at the future? Are we looking at the past? We could be looking at two places at once, the past and the future. If this represents the time when the female energy was dominant, then what we're looking at is a time when we lived under a red sky, when the blue beam shot up into the world and filled our world with energy, and there was one safe and guaranteed safe place to live where everyone wanted to go, which was the Fountain of Youth, the land at the middle, the land beyond the Arctic Circle, known as Hyperborea. So that could be where we're looking at when we're looking at these communities, but maybe not right away, right? Maybe we're looking at this community right before it ends. Maybe we're looking at the extreme, the opposite end in the world to come. This is a warning. This is what it could turn out to be to us who haven't been there yet, to us who haven't got there, right? Keep that in mind. Everything's still black and white. They do a close-up on this guy. He's actually the guy with the beard right there. He's actually the current receiver of memory. That's what they're called. He's about to become the giver of memory because Jonas is about to be selected. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. So the Chief Elder says, "Beginnings. From disorder and chaos came a solution." Now, that happens to be one of the mottos of the so-called Illuminati, the world's elite that we live in today, ordo ab chao, which means order out of chaos, right? Out of chaos comes order. That's actually just the natural way of things. Communities were built after this apocalyptic event. Serene, beautiful places where disorder became harmony. Actually, what you'll see is harmony is forced harmony. It's harmony in the eyes of a select few, the way that they see it as being harmonious, the way that their perfect society is to them. Keep this in mind because we are the ones who set up these future communities. We are the ones who build those tribes going forward. You, one day, will become, or possibly could become, the matriarch or patriarch of an extensive family that turns into tribes and nations and things like that, which is interesting and fun to think about because your story now is the story that others will find joy in reading. All of the ups and downs that you're going through right now in life will one day become legend. If you live. I mean, if you truly, really live. Nobody wants to read a boring book. Be the best book you can. All right, ceremony of release to elsewhere. So before they give their jobs out to the high school graduates, they're like, oh, let's all release these people to elsewhere. Yay, let's clap for them. Everyone's so excited, and it's showing mostly all the elderly people. They're now getting ready for their joyous retirement to elsewhere. And you can see them all excited, toothless and stuff, and it's like, okay, I wonder where elsewhere is. Celebrating the new children. So now they bring out the babies. Baby is too general of a term, so they specifically call them new children. And they bring out these new children, which were created in a laboratory by geneticists. They don't have natural birth mothers or fathers. They don't have a family. No one in this community does. They're assigned family units. They're assigned people to be your dad or to be your mom or to be your sister or whatever. Proudly engineered by our esteemed geneticists. Produced by our honored birth mothers. So a birth mother is somebody, see, they produce these test tube babies in a lab, but somebody has to give birth to them. So they take that material that they created, the genetic makeup for a baby, and then they inject it into the womb of somebody who is healthy, a female who is capable of giving birth. This is the story of the Anunnaki, who came down from the heavens, floated down into our world during one of the prior apocalyptic events. And the stories in the Enuma Elish talk about how the Anunnaki had their own geneticists and how they were trying to create people through genetics. and they used some of their own genes, and basically they had to birth the children themselves because they didn't like, I guess they didn't know how to grow them or whatever in a lab or whatever. So they had to actually put them into a female who would be called the birth mother. So now they're going to be assigned their family units. They're just sort of setting up how the community works. It's going to get really interesting in a minute. Our nines today receive a symbol of their progressing. These are all the kids. They call them the nines, which is really interesting to me. Nine is synonymous with Nun, which is really interesting too for the talking about the Anunnaki. But even more specific is that the number 9 is represented by the glyph of a circle with an X right in the middle of it. The 9. Those who come from the 9 or the Nun or the glyph, which is that circle with an X, which represents the 4 lands at the middle of the world that used to be there on the old maps. It looks like a circular land that's divided by 4 rivers. Celebrating the graduates. So here we get to Jonas and his friends. They're super nervous. They have no idea what jobs they're going to be given for the community. They will be assigned their position in our community. All of your training has been to help you fit in, to curb any impulse that may set you apart from other people, right? So I want to talk about that real quick. That's the world that we live in today. Now, the thing about this movie, this is us in the way far future. These are, like, you could look at this as if, let's say you're a survivor of the apocalypse. This movie that's pretend, that's fake and not real, would be you getting a glimpse of your actual own relatives in your far distant future. And they learned from today, from your actions, from my actions, right? They don't want anyone to be different because this world that we live in, people become so extreme, everybody becomes so different that there is a loss of similarity. There's a loss of oneness, right? There's a loss of that connection to other people. So they're very much afraid of that happening again. So they go the other route and they take the other extreme. Number 51, Asher. Asher's the kid that makes everyone laugh. Drone pilot. He loves it. He wanted to be a drone pilot. And then they say, thank you for your childhood. Like, okay. They say that to all of the kids. Thank you for your childhood. Meaning your childhood has ended. Childhood, you are at childhood's end right now. He says, you can keep it. He's super excited. Everybody laughs, right? He's the one that makes everyone smile. His name means happiness. And then they go, whoa, they skipped Jonas. And Lily's concerned about it because usually things don't go wrong in this community, right? They say, thank you for your childhood. Jonas is like, oh my God, they skipped me. He's like so nervous right now. Number 104, Fiona. Let's see what she gets. From the beginning, it was clear Fiona flourished working with new children. She is a nurturer. So a nurturer is basically like a midwife. So somebody who's going to be next to the birth mothers, taking care of the children. The birth mothers are not nurturers. They're not designed to love the child and to hug them and to, embrace them and let them. No, the nurturers do all of that. It's very interesting. So that's what she's been chosen to be. Thank you for your childhood too. Now in front of Jonas right there, can you see there's another triangle? Another triangle right there in front of Jonas. That's the symbol for the doorway right in front of Jonas or Janus or Janus or Ion, strong Ion, right? So many different names. And it's interesting too because it's also it's directly related to John. It means strong John, basically. John Oz. John, I see that name a lot in the movies. I'll just leave it at that. There's this one movie where every alien was named John, actually. You feel I've made a mistake. I apologize to my community. We accept your apology. Am I the only one who can't stand it when everyone speaks in unison like that? When everyone talks with that sort of cadence and rhythm where they're just like saying the words, It's like the Pledge of Allegiance, right? When we were kids and they would force us all into the classroom and have you all put your hand over your heart, which is now here instead of over here. And then everyone would go, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Like, with that exact same cadence, which tells me I have no idea what I'm saying. I have no idea what this means, but I know exactly what to say. I know exactly what the words are. That's what they're doing when they say, we accept your apology, right? By the way, the word apology means to make an excuse. That's all. I believe, and I started making this a habit in my life. Instead of saying I apologize, or saying I'm sorry, which is actually a shorthand version and a real weak way of saying I feel sorrow, right? That's why I like that specific way that they talk in the movie, which should be balanced, right? I feel it's better, and I started asking people to forgive me, like looking them in the soul and asking them to release whatever problem I just caused, right? Will you please release me? Will you please forgive me, right? All right, so Jonas has not been assigned a position. Jonas has been selected. He's been chosen. Now, he's lost and he's chosen. Two things to keep in mind. You're lost and you might be one of the chosen. Chosen for what? Let's see what happens. We were not hasty this time, she says. We could not afford another failure. What's she talking about, right? Even this guy's like, hey, whoa, can't believe she said that. We're going to get into what that failure was. Jonas possesses all 4 attributes: intelligence, integrity, courage, and one that I can name but I cannot describe: the capacity to see beyond. That's many of you. Ask yourself if you have these attributes: intelligence, integrity, courage, and the capacity to see beyond. Not just like in the movie. I'm talking about a sixth sense, right? It doesn't mean that you can actually have visions of the future. It's your capacity to see beyond, to recognize that there are other things at work in the world, that something is off, that something is different, or that there are other things present that most people are not aware of and that you can barely put a name to. The capacity to see beyond. But I must warn you, your training involves pain. Huh, great, right? Look at the expression. Remember the drone pilot kid? He's all, yeah, you can keep it. And then Jonas is like, yeah, I figured. Right? Like pain. Of course. I knew it. I had no idea where I belong. Now they're like, we chose you for some special position, but it involves pain, right? Not just pain, but pain far beyond anything we know. Jonas is like, keep cool, keep cool. Maybe she's joking again. Who knows? Are you strong enough? Now, wait a minute. This is how they talk in our world. This is a sort of spellcraft. Asking someone if they're strong enough to do what they have not been told what they're going to be doing is just a way of getting their acceptance, right? They're asking, are you strong enough? Do you think that you're strong enough? Well, for what, right? The truth seeker inside would start asking questions at this point. Do we think Jonas is brave enough? Now, check this out. Because typically these leaders, these elders, they already know that truth seekers like Jonas and like myself, we're apt to ask a lot of questions, especially when they're like, yeah, you're special and so we're going to hurt you. Like, what? I have a lot of questions. So she doesn't allow Jonas to speak. Instead, she gets everyone else involved and implements peer pressure. She wants him to feel pressure. Thank you, Ken. Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you. She wants Jonas to be pressured into accepting this new position that he's been chosen for because he can say no. Jonas, you have been selected as our next receiver of memory. Okay, whatever that means. Nobody in this community understands what the receiver of memory is. They just know that there's only one of them and that they do something really important. That's basically all they know. So then she says, thank you for your childhood. And she gives him this little token of his advancement. Now look at the token. Another triangle. A black triangle, actually, which is really interesting. Triangles symbolically represent mountains quite often. And a black one represents a black mountain, or Rupas Nigra, Mount Meru, right at the middle of the world. All right, so Jonas gets his triangle. He gets assigned his new position. Everyone starts chanting, Jonas, Jonas, Jonas. A lot of Jonases being repeated over and over and over, as if maybe that name carries some importance. It's a very good study, and I encourage you to check it out. It's called etymology, is the study of the roots and the origins of words, what they originally meant. All right, so everyone's chanting. Jonas is like, oh man. So they leave that place. He starts talking to his dad, which is really not his dad. It's just his assigned father. And he says, when she said we cannot afford another failure, what does she mean by that? And the dad's like, oh, well, 10 years ago, the receiver, Katie Holmes, is like, no, we do not speak of it, right? We do not speak of it. That is one way that they helped us. They program us to not talk about things that are fringe, to not talk about things that are taboo, to not speak of the things that are not popular or accepted by those people who have shaped and molded the society that we live in. We do not speak of it. And she says we, right? They do that a lot too. They do that whole we speak, like, oh, we won the Super Bowl. No, you really didn't. Like, they won the Super Bowl. You sat on the couch and ate Doritos. We do not speak of it. No, you do not speak of it. I speak of it all the time on YouTube. You need to watch my channel. I'm just kidding. Sort of. Not really. Anyways, so Jonas gets his instructions. He's got 5 rules. 1, report directly to the receiver of memory for your training. 2, from this moment on, you are exempt from all rules that govern rudeness, right? Now let's think about this. This world's sort of upside down. So what is considered to be rude, the opposite of that would actually be being polite. Sometimes in this world we live in, a person can be offended when you're simply polite towards them, which is sad. You may ask any question. This is the truth seekers. The receiver of memory is another word for a truth seeker, okay? And I'm not saying that everyone who just labels themselves a truth seeker is actually a truth seeker, but there are those of us who are, right? And they say you may ask any question. We are allowed to ask anything we want to. That is something nobody else is, okay? The world that you live in today, all those other people, they're not allowed to ask questions. You already know this when you went to school and they said, well, we have an open door policy. There's no such thing as a stupid question. But the moment you raise your hand, all the other children go, God, just let them teach, or whatever it may be, right? They really don't want anyone asking questions except for the truth seekers. That's our job. They expect us to ask questions. Unfortunately, there's some pain involved with that job, right? Number 3, aside from your daily injection, you may not receive other medicines, especially those for pain. As a truth seeker, you are not allowed to have your pain dulled, your senses dulled. Why? Because we are needed to be vigilant. We are needed to have our full life's energy. We are needed to be cognizant of our feelings, our emotions, so that we can sense and pick up on those things that are being handed to us, those tools that we're given. Number 4, you may not discuss your training with anyone. Damn, right? That one got me good because that's what I do. I discuss my training every day with all of you, knowing that most people won't get it. It's okay. It's totally fine. Many people will not agree. Some people will become offended because JayDreamerZ is, not giving good references, or he's talking about movies and comic books and this and that. That's okay. That's okay. You're not to discuss your training with anyone. You're to keep it a secret. What's the secret? Interesting. Well, it could have something to do with that whole ruin episode they mentioned at the beginning. You're not ever allowed to talk to people about this, right? That's what they say. It's a secret. This is the whole Illuminati thing. This is the whole, people and those secret societies and whatever secrets that they have. Some of us freely, like me, are allowed to talk about the secret. Why? Because I didn't go swear some ridiculous oath on my life that, people can kill me if I don't, or if I do talk about it. I allowed these things to come to me and receive them naturally. I don't need some organization, to put me through all these trials and stuff. Mother Earth will teach you the secrets of reality if you just listen. Number 5, you may lie. Ooh, that's an interesting one. We're going to get more into that in a bit. Sometimes I feel like you got to lie. I don't like lying. I don't like liars. I don't like deception. But sometimes it's best. We're sort of, a lie is sort of a stigma. I know this might trigger some people who are not tracking right now, and that's okay. But a lie is not always bad. Okay. Sometimes it's best to keep information from somebody, to benefit them or to benefit the greater good or whatever. Right. I like to think of it as you never know what's happening in the car in front of you when you're driving. You don't know what that person is going through, and your very good intentions could have very bad results. So with that being said, they're talking about lying, not deceiving. I believe there's a distinction between the two, but that's just me. It was built right on the edge. So this is where he's going to report. This is this little Greco-Roman house looking thing over here. This is where he's going right now. That's where the current receiver of memory, who is about to become the giver, lives. He lives on the edge of this world. We'd all heard of people getting lost to the edge. Okay. They might be talking about us. They might be talking about our actual history. We've all heard of people who have gone to the edges or the extremes of the earth, never to come back. Either because it's a perilous journey, they died, it's dangerous or whatever, or because they made it. They made it out. They left. They left this world of death and darkness and chaos and all of this stuff, and they found a better place, and they decided to stay. We've all heard those stories. Never to be seen again. And yet, here I was, being told that I have to get close to this edge every day. Another word for the edge is fringe, okay? Jonas is being told you're going to have to get close to the fringe every day. All of those taboo topics, all of that fringe topics, all of that, conspiracy type of tinfoil hat weirdo talk, Jonas is going to have to get close to the edge every day. That's me. That's you. That's many of us, right? We are Jonas, and we're going to live on the edge. That's the exciting. That's the best place for me. People like me. I want to live on the edge for the rest of my life. That's the life of a truth seeker. So they show you a side view of the edge, and as you can see, it's just land that's surrounded by all these clouds. This mist is always there. This is very interesting to me because I'm trying to figure out when this takes place. I don't believe that a fairy tale is nonsense. I don't believe that a movie is made up. I don't believe that stories that we are told or that we think that we come up with all on our own are lies, are deceptions, right? That they're frivolous, that they have no meaning. I don't believe in that. And I stopped believing in that quite some time ago. And that's why I do this series. I believe we are looking at our own history, whether it be in our far future or in our far past or both. I believe that this is what is being shown to us. So where in our history can we find, even in the legends and the myths, a land that is separated from all the other lands by a constant cloud or mist or fog? It is the land called Hyperborea, the land that is beyond the Arctic Circle, the land at the true North Pole of our world. The legends say that there is a constant storm, that there is a twisting and twirling of energy and energetic forces right there in the middle, and those twisting and whirling energies also create this constant storm, this constant fog. And so these communities, or the North Pole, is hidden usually by fog, by clouds, etc. Kind of like where Wonder Woman lives in the Amazons, if you've seen that movie. Anyways, so here's where he's going. He gets to this house that is on the edge. You see this hallway he's walking down. So this whole hallway symbolism, this corridor, this is symbolic of transition. Transitioning from the boring world, the lame world that I live in right now, to a more interesting one, to Wonderland, right? It's this is like Coraline's In the movie Coraline, she has like this little tunnel that she goes through. This is also the rabbit hole. This is very symbolic. Sometimes they show you this, but you're at the bottom of a stairway. Usually it's like a spiral staircase or something, and you see it, and it's symbolic of transition. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people, including myself, I've done this before too, but I feel like too many people internalize everything that they see symbolically. They're like, oh, well, that's like an internal struggle, you know, that he's going through. So internally, yes, there is an internal aspect to it. But if there is an internal, there must be a balance, which is the external, which is the physical, which is the actual plasma conduits, hallways, circuits of time, whatever you want to call it, passageways that take you from one reality or one world to another. So Jonas comes in, he sees the giver, and he says, oh, my name is, he's like, I know who you are. He goes, of course, I apologize. And then the guy just walks away. He doesn't say anything. He goes, I apologize? He says, don't say that. That's just an automatic pleasantry. I apologize. It doesn't mean anything, right? And then Jonas automatically goes, I apologize. I'm sorry. And then just like, he almost has to physically put his hand over his mouth to keep from continuing to do what has been ingrained in him to do since birth, which is to automatically tell somebody, I apologize because I offended you, right? This guy is old school. He is the receiver of memory. He can remember the way that the world once was. And he's like, don't do that. And Jonas is like, oh, I'm excited to learn about your life. You know, you're going to share your memories with me. He's like, no. I'm not going to share my memories with you. You will learn the secret history of the world. You will learn the secret history of the world. They're talking to you, not to Jonas, because Jonas is you. You will learn the secret history of the world. Before me, before you, generations. This is called hidden history. History that has been hidden from us. History has been rewritten, in case you didn't know, okay? History is written by the victors. History is written by people who would like to shape the future. And this guy confirms that later on in the movie. You see, no one in our community has any memory of the past. That's this world that we live in now as well. That will happen probably in the future, okay? But it has also happened in our past, bringing us to our present day where none of us can remember a damn thing going back, and we all have to guess, oh, the pyramids, oh, they're so mysterious. I wonder how they were built. Oh, Atlantis, you know, like it's frustrating to me because I know that I feel. When I say I know, what I really mean is I feel. I feel and I sense the truth behind it. But anyways, no one has any memory of the past. Now, Jonas walks. Look at the floor. I want to show you some symbolism here, right? Obviously, somebody in the chat pointed out earlier that there's this clear dome symbolism there, right? So there's a little dome symbolism. There's also could be sort of, you know, you could make out an eyeball symbolism. But I don't really want to point that out. I want to look at something else. There is the squatting man. There is the DC. You see that? Boom. Just like I showed you earlier, Jonas is standing right there in the middle. Jonas is Janus, or Janus, the god of doorways, right? And this is one dome touching another dome. In the middle is a doorway. In the middle is an opening. This is what it's like when worlds collide, as the song goes, right? There's two worlds. It's the D and the C together. Those two curves, those two domes. Now, Jonas is standing directly in the middle of this one over here. I'm going to show you that one in a minute. I don't know. Let's see if we could zoom in. What is in the middle is a star. It's a nautical star, which means these are pointing to the different directions. By the way, if you're interested in the occult directions, I'm going to do a video this weekend about it. What's it going to be called? I can't remember. Anyways, I'm going to be doing a video about it this weekend. We're going to talk about 21 Pilots. We're going to talk about Black Hole Sun and some other things. But as you can see, there's a black pyramid. There's a black triangle right there at Jonas's feet in the dead center of the directional star, which means if this is symbolizing the world that we live on, the plane of existence that he is on, that is a black mountain right at the dead middle, a door. A triangle, an opening, a passageway. Interesting. All right, let's see what else we got here. Oh, I just circled it there so you can see it better. I'm sure you guys can see that. So the giver is like, man, where do I even start, right? As truth seekers, you wonder, where do I begin? If you have, now people like me, I always get super excited when there's like, you know, some neophyte, some new person who's like, yeah, like tell me all the secrets of the world. So it's like, oh, wow. Not used to that. Where do I even begin? You know, where do you even start? Okay. So where do we begin? Now he notices that he has a marking on his arm. You see that marking there? He's got this sort of black triangle looking birthmark deal. Sort of looks like maybe a circle with a black triangle coming out of it or something. He's got that. He's got a mark. So chosen, lost, and marked. 3 attributes of the seekers, or the givers of memory and the receivers of memory. So he puts his hand on Jonas's mark, and on the count of 3, he's about to transmit to him some ancient memories. So he's like, get closer. And he just scoots up a little bit. He's like, no, get closer. And then finally he grabs Jonas's chair, pulls him right up to him, right? That's another thing too, right? In this society, being close to another human is against the rules. You're not allowed to hold hands, not allowed to kiss, you're not allowed to touch, you're definitely not allowed to make babies. They don't want anyone to have that connection with anyone else. Why? Well, there might be other reasons aside from just, you know, keeping us all separated. It might have to do with telepathy in our future. Whenever the world's energy becomes re-amplified and people have telepathic abilities, right? At first, telepathic abilities don't require touch, but as the energy of the world dwindles, after a while, you have to like touch somebody, do like a Vulcan mind meld type deal, and then you're able to, you know, to share things with them, share memories and stuff, or talk to them or whatever. So he goes into a trance. Next thing Jonas sees is he's walking in snow. Looks at his hand. He's like, whoa, they don't have snow in this community. None at all. He sees a sled. He gets on it. Remember, he's looking at a memory. So even though he doesn't know what a sled is or how to use it, he's actually just along for the ride, okay? He jumps into someone else's memory, kind of like Quantum Leap style, and he gets to experience it, whatever. He gets to see through their eyes. So he's riding the sled. He's going down. He's excited. He's never seen anything like this. The snow is new. All these trees are new. Gets to some weird looking dwelling place. When he's done, wait a minute. What's on the door? Oh, it's a wreath. Wait a minute. What are they singing? Christmas songs? Interesting. So he's being shown this vision of some place during Christmas time in the winter. Why did they choose it to be Christmas time? Christmas has nothing to do with this movie whatsoever. It's called the Christmas Day Catastrophe, right? You'll see it in a lot of movies. Even movies that are not really about Christmas that much, they'll show you that it is Christmas time. Like, for example, The Princess Bride. Not about Christmas whatsoever, yet it was purposefully chosen to happen during the Christmas season, or Gremlins, or, you know, there's so many different movies. There's this catastrophe that happens. That's because the ancients watched the stars. The ancients studied the times and the seasons, and they knew that something special happens right around the Christmas time. Something important. Something where you should light candles. Something where you should stay inside and be with your family. Anyway, so they start singing and stuff. Boom, the memory's gone. Jonas comes back. He's like, what was that? Snow. He goes, he's like, you know, is that real? Do we have snow? He's like, no. That's a very distant memory, right? Remember this with the sled. We're going to come back to the sled towards the end. There is no snow because of climate control. And he says, I mean, what's so dangerous about the memory of a sled? Right? We could say that about certain things and elements of our past that have been completely erased, right? We could say what's so dangerous about this, that, or the other thing. And those are good questions, right? He says, what's so dangerous? Well, for a sled, you need snow. Snow is cold. Cold destroys crops. Everything is connected. Everything is a balance. So because they didn't want anyone to have anything to do with snow or wanting to live in the cold, they completely got rid of the concept of a sled. Now he doesn't know what it is. it has been erased from existence, essentially. Everything is connected. Everything is a balance. Now, everything is connected and everything has a balance. They're showing you one extreme right now. They're showing you this extreme where this guy in your future is being imparted memories of you. We live in the sled world. That's our world. He just showed us, he basically allowed Jonas, this fictional character in the movie, to tear open the veil, poke his head out of the movie theater screen and look into your world and get a tiny glimpse of it and try to even comprehend it, right? So everything is connected. Everything is a balance. With good, there is always bad. The two, well, I don't know what he said after that, but with good, there was always bad, right? Now, the balance part is the crucial part. We're looking at extremes when we look at the black and white world that they live in and our colorful world that we live in, which we're going to talk about the colors too. Now, he says, your instructions said I can lie. Now, you see this tree that this dude's making? They don't even have real trees. This reminded me, this is how I know we are at our extremity before our apocalyptic events, before our ruin comes to this world, is we have to make trees. False ones, fake ones, plastic ones, metal ones, right? I see them all over the place. Usually people put them up and then they put little cell phone tower things inside of them so that you don't see the radiation from the cell phone tower. You just see a tree or whatever, which is ridiculous. I don't know. Like, does that work for you guys? It doesn't work for me. Like, they stand out like sore thumbs. Anyways, he says, Jonas is like, hey, you said I could lie. Do you lie? He's asking the giver of memory if he lies. He's like, oh, all the time. He gets a kick out of it, right? Mostly for personal amusement. But I won't lie to you. Now, Jonas is a truth seeker. What do you think he's about to ask? How do I know that's not a lie, right? And then the guy looks at him, just kind of like how Gandalf looked at Strider when we were breaking that down, and Strider's like, what does your heart tell you? And Gandalf's like, that's my boy. Yes, that's exactly how this guy is, right? I'll never lie to you. He's like, but you're allowed to lie, so how do I know that's not a lie, right? He's like, good. He's proud of him, right? Because that's the question you should ask when somebody who has a position of authority says that they'll never lie to you, but they admit that they do lie. Then the question is, how do I know you're not lying to me, right? So he says, you're the giver. I mean, you're the receiver. So I guess that makes me the giver, right? And like we talked about, the giver represents the energy and the spirit that gives, that adds to the world. Instead of trying to tear it apart and break it down, the giving energy wants to build it up. It wants to create. All right, so we go back to the home, and they're trying to show the baby Gabe this comfort object, who he says, this is a mythical creature called a hippo. Right? Clearly it's an elephant, right? And it's incredibly fast because it has 2, 3, 4, 5 legs, because they think that the trunk is a leg. They have no idea what an elephant is. Let's think about that. Do we have any idea what an elephant is? Or do we just kind of take that particular animal for granted? Just some big, bulky, slow-moving thing that we call an elephant. Well, what does elephant mean? I'm not going to tell you, because I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that for you if you'd like to look that up. Where does it come from? Where did this gigantic, huge, largest of all the land-living mammals come from? Right? What is it? Where does it hail from? What did it used to look like? Why does it look the way that it does today? I feel sorry for elephants these days, because in my spirit, I don't remember elephants looking so saggy and skinny and like their skin looking like it's all wrinkled and falling off of them and stuff. Like, I see elephants, and to me, and you know, I'm not from Africa or Asia or anything. I've been to zoos and stuff. That's the only place I've really seen elephants, and the Renaissance Festival. But something inside of me says that elephants are not well. Many of the animals, even humans. I look at all of you and I'm like, we are not well. This is not our potential. Like, we have fallen. You know what I mean? Anyway, so the baby Gabe has the same mark, so he's destined to be a truth seeker as well. And he says, I almost didn't even need to see his mark to know. This is us, okay? This mark that truth seekers share, it is not a physical mark that you get, okay? That you're like, oh, let me see your mark. Are you one of us? Oh, yeah, you are. You have the mark or whatever. No, no, no. This is a mark up here and right here, okay? This is an energetic mark. And you resonate with those who have a similar energetic marking as the one that you have. So it's easy for Jonas to recognize the truth seeker inside of the baby because he vibes with his soul. He vibes with his spirit. He says, I feel it. I don't need to see the mark. I can feel it, right? Now, keep in mind, the opposite, there's always good and bad. There's always the opposite end of the spectrum. The good people, I'm just using these terms loosely, have a mark that they can recognize one another. So do the bad people, okay? They have bad thoughts. They have a bad heart. They have bad actions, things that they do. All right, so here's the edge. Once again, they're showing you there's a little dome deal down there. See that? That's right underneath it. So this is interesting to me too, is that everyone else lives on the surface. Do you ever feel like that? You ever feel like everyone else lives on the surface? Like you are deep and other people are not. They're very surface level, right? Those of us who are truth seekers, we're deep. We get deep on things. We live on the fringe, on the edge. We are deep. All right, so here's another memory he's given of a bee. The bee's buzzing around, gets Jonas, pow, right in the forehead, right between the eyes. And he goes, ow, is that the pain that they were talking about? He goes, no, not even close. like I laughed so hard at this part when he's like, nah, what? That's not pain. That's not the pain. No, that's like being stung by a bee, right? The pain is the heartbreak. The pain is your heart breaking and shattering into a million pieces because you realize all the bad right along with all the good. And sometimes that can sway people in the wrong direction. So he's like, no, not even close. He's like, did you notice anything about it? Any quality? And Jonas is like, yeah, actually. Now, let's take a look at the bee because you might not have noticed either. Can you tell that it's got a little bit of yellow in there? Just a tinge, just a hint of color, right? So that's what he's asking. He's asking him, did you see the color? Because they live in a black and white world. It's not just for us. It's not just for the art of the movie. And it's just, we see black and white, but the characters don't. The characters see black and white too, except for the giver. He does not see in black and white. So he's trying to expose Jonas to color. Did you notice anything about it? Any quality? I think I saw it first in my friend Fiona's hair. Remember when he looked at their hair and you could see a tinge of red in her hair? That's because Fiona is a redhead. He goes, yes, my first was yellow. Now let's talk about this. Actually, we'll talk about it in a minute. So this giver, the first color that he saw when he escaped his black and white world was yellow. I'm going to go somewhere really interesting with this. So bear with me. This giver saw yellow as his first color, right? He says, if you thought that the sled was special, wait till you see this. So they hold out their hands to do their telepathy deal again. Boom. All this beautiful, beautiful color. The sunset. Jonas is out on the ocean. He's never even seen a large body of water in his entire life. This is all myth. This is all legend. This is all stuff that, like the myth of the hippo and the elephant, people don't even know what it is anymore. And he's being shown it. Can you imagine how he must feel? He would be in awe, just soaking it in, right? So he shows him all of these beautiful colors. And after he shows him this, the color starts to come back into the picture. So the movie starts to change. When you see things through Jonas's eyes or through the giver's eyes, you start to see color now. When it's through Jonas's eyes, you see just a tinge of color at first, more of the fleshy red tones. Hey, welcome to my channel, oldie boy Davey. Good to see you. All right, so I'm going to get back to the color in just a second. So Jonas takes a look around this little library where the giver lives, right? And where he now lives too. Or this is like his office space as well. Do you see what's in the background there? Let's take a little zoom in on there. Let me show you. This is called a labyrinth. Now, when you think of a labyrinth, when most people think of a labyrinth, they think of all these dead ends and, getting lost in the maze or whatever. This labyrinth is more pagan in origin. It's very interesting. There is only one path. Although it looks confusing, although it looks like, you have to try to figure out which way to go, you don't. To get to the middle of this labyrinth, all you need to do is keep going. And that is good news to people like myself. That's all you got to do. Just keep going. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to know where you're going. You just have to keep going and you will get to the center. I like that they put that in there. All right, so Jonas picks up an apple, right? Symbolic of Adam and Eve. They're going to show the apple a lot and the attainment of knowledge and whatnot. And he goes, it's red. He's like, I can see red. Oh my God. And now he starts looking around everywhere. He sees the telephone popping out. That's red. He sees this red square over here. And he's like, just like her hair. Yeah. He says, you'll see them all the time. When our people, they chose to do away with all of them. Color, race, religion. They created sameness. Let's back up just a bit. Let's go back to this red. I want to talk about this. Because this was a black and white world, right? Look at it. See? Black and white, right? If this is the future, remember, we may internalize these things symbolically. We may say, oh, well, it's symbolic of them not being able. No, they physically cannot see color. So on one hand, it's internal, yes. The struggle to flourish and to be yourself and to see differences and stuff like that. But on the other hand, it's actually very literal and physical that there is a time when color is removed from our world. That takes us into light. That means that the light source in our world must change because color is a byproduct of light. It's got nothing to do with the pigmentation or, the actual physical material. Oh, that's not true. It's got a little bit to do with that, but it's got more to do with the light that reflects off of that material and back into our eyes. So let's talk about this black and white real quick. I believe that we live under a white focal point right now that most people call the sun, okay? That white color, which is slowly going, I believe it's slowly moving into the blue spectrum because it's getting hotter. But that white color spreads out all of the different colors. It contains all of the other colors inside of it. So we live in a very colorful world right now, which I'm thankful for, which I think is beautiful. And I accept that and I love that. And that's the balance to see the beauty there, right? Unfortunately, we're very far along in this world, so we're getting close to an extremity, an extreme point, which is right before a reset point. We have full color. Once the reset comes and the sky turns red, there will be red, for the most part, all over the place. Red will be the color of the light source. If red is the color of the light source, that means that the world essentially becomes shades of black and white, basically, and red. I mean, you know what I mean? What's black and white and red all over? I just thought of that. Anyways, we'll come back to that example here in a bit. Let's move on. If we were different, we could be envious, angry, or resentful, consumed with hatred. We need sameness. Interesting. Instead of sameness, you could say oneness, right? But in their world, it's more like sameness is not oneness, it's similarness, being the exact same, not recognizing the differences. I love to recognize the differences. I also love to recognize the sameness. It's balance. It's a balance that we desperately need. We need to recognize that we are all very much freaking different. But we also would benefit from recognizing that these differences are superficial, that we are ultimately all connected, right? So now he asks them, because he says, we need sameness. That's their motto, basically, of this dystopian world. We need sameness, don't you think? He's asking him. He's not saying this is what I believe. He's saying, what do you think? Jonas says, oh, I completely agree, which, by the way, is an automatic regurgitated response. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to on the phone where they go, oh, I automatically agree. Usually it's preceded by the word oh. Oh, I completely agree. But still, it's all so beautiful. So he doesn't agree. He agrees, but he doesn't. He's balanced, right? It's not one or the other, it's both. Now they look out across the way where there's supposed to be elsewhere and ruin and nothing, and there's a tree growing. Interesting. They'd always said elsewhere was so far away, but it wasn't. It was right there. And then they show you the sky, the fractured sky with the trees acting as the cracks in the sky, right? But let's go back real quick. I want to talk about this. They had always said that elsewhere was so far away. Basically, elsewhere is being dead, okay? But that's the spiritual. The physical, elsewhere, is anywhere else other than their community, way up on this tree trunk thing that they live on, right? Elsewhere, for us, is space. Elsewhere are the other realms, the other of the 9 realms that are out there on the tree of life called Yggdrasil, the greater cosmic tree. There are other worlds, there are other realms. I'm not talking about spinning, whirling, twirling, flying balls, marbles through space, planetoids. I'm talking about realms. I'm talking about planes of existence. More like a fantasy Dungeons and Dragons or something, okay? And I believe that there's some truth to the academic whole planets and space and stuff like that, but I'm talking about realms. Now, if elsewhere is heaven, where you go when you die typically, right? Or what we consider to be space, then let's replace the word elsewhere with space. They had always said that space was so far away, or that those other realms, those stars, those tiny little lights, that they're so far away. But it's not. It's right there. If you were to remove the veil of the sky, I believe in my feelings, okay, you would probably see huge, gigantic, like stuff, other worlds that take up most of our entire sky. That's so big out there. So close. You feel like you could just touch it. Right? I think that when we look up and we're looking at a wall when we look up. That's why it's so dark in here. We look up, we look at the inside, the underneath part of that wall, and then we're conditioned to see something. Instead of just seeing a wall with little cracks and lights in it, we're conditioned to like stare at it like one of those 3D puzzles that pops out if you look at it long enough, right? Oh, I think I see a galaxy. Yeah. And they probably like went way and then turned left and went that way. But in reality, they're just looking at a wall and being creative. All right. And whenever he says this, then they show you a shot of the sky. This is the very next shot. When they talk about elsewhere and how it's actually really close, the next shot they show you is the sky with the trees again. And then Fiona comes up and she says, Jonas, have you fallen? Interesting. You see the play on words there? Jonas, have you fallen? Being like a fallen angel, being a rebellious one, somebody that doesn't do what is the status quo wherever they are. And yes, Jonas is falling. He's becoming a fallen one, which is not necessarily bad. It's just bad to that community because he's going to rebel against this dystopian community. Do you need immediate help? Now, she's like, what are you doing? He's lying on the ground, right? This is just like they don't want physical touch between humans. They don't want you to touch the earth. They don't want you to ground yourself. They don't want you to be one with the nature so that you can pick up on the songs that the earth is singing, the prophecies, the stories that the earth herself will tell you if you listen. And sometimes you need to touch because we have lost a lot of energy. Then she recognizes something. Remember, her name means the vine, Fiona, the vine, right? So she is also like an element of truth. These are the three, right? It's like the Trinity concept, right? So she would be one of the Trinity. So she recognizes that something different is happening. She just can't see it. She says, you're seeing something, aren't you? Now, this is good because this is a first step for other truth seekers when you can recognize and put faith in the fact that someone else genuinely does see something that you don't, right? So, they're holding hands for a brief moment. Some of the colors coming back. Jonas looks over and he's like, damn, she can't see. She still sees in black and white. So he says, hey, look over there. What do you see? but they're talking to you. They're talking to me. What do you see, right? Well, we see a rainbow. We see all of the different color spectrums. But in the world to come, people will see more like this, right? Whenever all the color is bathed in one type of light, basically it creates a sense of black and white for everything. We don't have colors. We have no distinction between all the different colors. We just have shades of gray. That's it. Under a red sky. It would probably be the same if it was a green sky or a blue sky or I mean, I'm not the sky, but the light itself that comes down, okay? The light is filtered through that sky whenever it comes down and the light turns red. Right now we get light from a focal point, but when that focal point is gone and the whole entire sky itself is the light source, then that light becomes red. And you're looking through a red lens. Everything is tinted with this red tint. Now look at the water, right? It becomes black. There are some colors. If you look here, I've given you an example, right? On the top, you can see a blue cube, a red cube, and a yellow cube. These are all under white light. You're allowed to see under the white light, under the focal point of the sunlight, all the different colors. You can differentiate. You can see the differences. Under a red light, the blue cube becomes black. The red cube is camouflage, you can barely see it, and the yellow cube becomes red, and it fits right in. These are some esoteric color symbolism that are used in many of our movies and our songs and stuff. People ask, like, you know, what's the symbolism of why do the Illuminati use orange so much? Orange is on the red spectrum, so orange would be camouflage in the world to come. Yellow would be camouflage in the world to come. Red would be camouflage in the world to come. Or as Imagine Dragons say it, we'll paint it red and it fit right in. Whoa. Also, you see this in 21 Pilots too. I'm starting to get more into 21 Pilots because of your recommendations, interestingly enough. But we'll come back to that in another video. Here's another example of all these crayons. So I put all these crayons under a red filter, a red light. And as you can tell, your brain might try to make sense of which color is which at first. But you can see it basically creates shades of gray and black and white. Now the white is really red, right? But that's what we see after we're so used to it. We're inundated with this red light all over the place all the time. We basically see in black and white. And that's the world that these people live in. They live in this black and white world. And I'll also say, I saw a video where some people had put on some, I think it was ultraviolet sunglasses or something, or filter. And this is also what it looks like, is black and white when you look through an ultraviolet filter. I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. Top of the dome, you see all the little triangles representing all the delettes or the doors, right? They're standing outside of this world on the sort of ring. And they said, it's like I'm seeing things for the very first time, right? Oh, hey, thanks, Jedi. Super appreciate it. It's like I'm seeing things for the first time. Once, when I was looking at that mist, even though they tell us that there's nothing close to the edge, I thought I saw a tree out there somewhere. That's the girl talking, right? She can't even see in color. Meanwhile, Jonas is keeping all this to himself. Why? Because they're going to think he's crazy if he says, I can... And they don't even... If he tried to describe color to them at this point in time, they would think he's crazy. They would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. They can't conceive of different colors at this point in time. But here's that mist that surrounds their little island. Now, this guy's a drone pilot, so he's talking about what he has seen out there in the land of elsewhere, in the ruins, right? He says there's these two huge rocks leaning against each other. You see how he makes a triangle, a doorway, right? Two huge rocks, pyramid, unfinished pyramid, plasma volcano, entrance into the earth, etc., making a kind of a triangle. So there's the door symbolism again. He says, hey, it's kind of like our triangle, the bush that we looked at earlier. And he says, what's past there? What's past the triangle of rocks? He says, I don't know. We're not allowed to fly past that. So they have these no-fly zones, right? When you get to the pillars, when you get to these rocks that jet up out of the ocean water, when you get closer to, beyond our Arctic Circle, that's a no-fly zone. That is, the governments of the world will all agree nobody goes there, just like Antarctica. The North Pole, Antarctica, they basically don't want you traveling freely because they want to keep you here. Excuse me. That's really weird. They have these trays at the top. Everybody's eating at the top. I couldn't really figure that out, but I did see that there's this pyramid shape in the background. Unfinished pyramid with the all-seeing eye at the top, as you can see. And they've got these food trays. So they grab a food tray, and Jonas wants to slide down like in his memory of the sled. And Asher's like, what? I don't think that's a good idea. He's like, what, are you scared? He says, I'm not scared of anything, but it's against the rules, right? He wants to, I mean, it looks fun. It looks like a good time, but he's got this web form spell wrapped around his mind. And he's like, no, I'm prohibited. He physically can't do it because of the spell casting and the programming that he's been given telling him that it's wrong when it's not. He's got the freedom to do that. If he wants to jump down there and slide and risk his life, he can. That's the wonder of life. You can, you get to. But there's the rules. There's the laws. Okay. Then the girl says, since when do you care about the rules? Jonas is like, yeah, that's cool. That's all right. He's like, I'll see you guys later. So he takes off. All right. So they slide down. They have the time of their lives. They land on the ground. They're laughing. They're smiling. Their vibe is increasing. Their energy is increasing. Typically, they're pretty, docile because of that medicine that they take. They stand up. He helps her up, so they hold hands. And then the moment they start holding hands, there's this electronic voice that says, please stand by for a community announcement. Citizens are reminded that it is impolite to touch community members outside of your family unit. It's impolite. They both are consenting. They both want to touch each other. They both are having a good time. They want to share the energy that they feel. That's why we hug. That's why we hold hands. That's why we kiss. That's why we do these things, is to share. And they say, don't share. Don't do that. That's impolite. That's not true. It's not impolite whatsoever. It's impolite if it's unwelcome. If it's welcome, then it's totally polite. It's a gift. But they're lying, and they're telling us that it is impolite to do these certain things. Community members outside of your family unit shall not be touched. So they let go of each other's hands. Now this guy, the original giver, he's getting in trouble because Jonas is acting crazy, riding trays down the tops of domes and stuff, right? So then this guy gets called into the principal's office, basically, and he's like, he's interested in his position. What can I say, right? Then why is he breaking the rules, right? Don't you have a handle on this guy? See, they want him to be like the handler. They want to use him to try to manipulate Jonas into working for them so that they can continue to control everybody the way that they want to in their utopia, right? To everyone else, it's sort of a dystopia, but to them, it's their utopia. Why is he breaking the rules? He's been observed trying to share his training with his former classmates. Does that sound familiar? Whenever you come to the light of certain truths and whatnot, that's one of the first things you want to do, right? You want to, let's grab hands. Bro, I got so much to share. I want to just put it in your mind right now, right? Well, the giver says, that always happens, right? But it's an impossible experiment. Why? Because you cannot force other people to see what you see. You can only open a door. You can only share a breadcrumb and see if they want a meal. You know what I mean? There's another triangle there too. She says, don't fail us again. He's like, what would you say? Like, what? All right, so they're in the library, and this piece of paper falls out of a book, and Jonas is reading it, and it says, plan for sameness. Now, this has two meanings to it. One, it is a plan that they have for sameness, right? For this dystopian society that they have. It's their plan. Two, it's telling you to plan for sameness that eventually and inevitably will occur, just like the world that we live in today, in our society that we live in today. I'm sure those people who lived thousands of years before us were told to prepare for the world that we live in today. So we should be prepared, really, because there's nothing new under the sun. So he opens up this map. Let's check out this map, right? I love this. So this is a map of their little world with their various communities. We're going to zoom in super far. Here is their world. See that little tree trunk looking deal? That is their entire world right there. That little circle is the dome that they were just on top of. Here is the triangle of rocks. This is all pretty close to like the center of the map. There's other communities though. So let's think outside of the box. If this right here, this could represent just the North Pole, okay? Which is, I think it does, okay? I think it represents the lands that were once depicted on our maps, the 4 lands that were at the North Pole, surrounded by a constant storm, surrounded by fog and mist and stuff. But it could also represent our entire world. And just off to the side of our world, we've got another realm and another realm that are off to the sides. Meanwhile, if you look at the bigger picture, right, if we look at everything here, you see it's in this sort of gigantic circular area. So interesting. There could be these tiny little realms inside of a much greater, bigger circular area, at least in the movie. So he's like, whoa, the triangle of rocks right there in the middle. Check that out. Community A. Hey, that's real. They're talking to you. This is not the movie, okay? That's real. That's what they're saying. That's real. Now, does it look exactly like that? I don't know. Probably not. It's the doorway, it's the triangle, it is the entrance, it is rock, it is Rupus Negra, it is the unfinished pyramid, it is the split mountain, etc., and so on and so forth. Whoa, look at all these towers. Now let's check out these towers around the borders. Chuck and Chambers, hey, thank you. Oh, he says it's shaped like the U.S. Oh, I did see that too. Now he's pointing at these towers. Around the outer edge, there are these towers. You see those sort of cube looking things, right? And it says boundary of memory, and there's these towers all the way around the outside. There are towers around the outside of the reality that you're looking at, possibly even our own. He says, what are they for? What's past the outer edge, the boundary of memory, right? There's another picture of it there. And he goes, a mystery. It's a mystery. So this guy inherited all the memories of all the esoteric and secret past, and he doesn't even know what it is. Interesting. He says, maybe if I crossed it, maybe if you or me crossed it, everyone could feel, right? Maybe if we took those memories beyond this thing that's keeping the memories away, like it'll reverse the effect and everyone will remember one day, right? So he's saying we should go on a trek. We should go on a journey. We should go on an expedition as truth seekers, for the benefit of everybody. Interesting. Those memories again. So there's also a such thing as hearing beyond. You see the window? The shape of the window? I have that exact same shape on my door. That's interesting. Anyways, this is also the dome symbolism, right? They purposefully put this in there like that for a reason. That's your world that you're looking at there. So there's also a such thing as hearing beyond. He shows him a piano, and Jonas is like, all the food would fall onto the floor. He starts playing some notes, and he says, listen, I'm about to teach you something. You can hear beyond. You can see beyond, where you almost get these images and these flashes of like memories and stuff, right? I've had it. I'm sure many of you have. But you can hear beyond as well. Some of you can pick up on other vibrations, just like music. There's something else that you can't see with your eyes. Something that lives deep inside of you. Something those morning injections take away. But I thought that the injections are for our health, says Jonah. No, they remove something. Emotions. Jonas is like, emotions? They're very deep. They're very primal. They linger. Now, Jonas, where you are or what's happening. Oh, I lost my place. I'm so sorry. Hold on. Let's see. Where you are or what's happening, but don't think about what you're seeing. Oh, he's basically saying, hey, forget about all the stuff that your body is sensing at this moment, right? Forget about me sitting here. Forget about playing the piano. Forget about me giving you this lesson of truth and life. But he says instead to get lost in the moment, to feel it, to listen to it, to listen to your inner self. What is it that you are feeling? What is it? See, we don't really have feelings anymore. We don't really have these emotions anymore. We have fleeting feelings, but we don't have emotions, right? Listen to what's calling from inside of you. That's where the emotion comes from. The emotion gets stirred up. The emotion wells up inside of you, and it's connected to some purpose that is in there. And they don't want you to have your purpose back. So he says, let me show you. Fa-pow, boom. He starts showing him. He takes them to some bar mitzvah, wedding type thing. Everyone's smiling. Everyone's dancing. Everyone's twirling around. There's music all over the place. Jonah's like, why would anyone want to get rid of this? And he says, good question. That's the answer. Good question. So Jonah takes it home. He wants to share with everyone. He's a little brand new baby truth seeker. He's like, oh, check this out. Look what I learned. I learned how to dance today, right? Hey, thank you, Ken. I totally see you in the chat. Thank you. So Jonas is teaching Lily to dance, right? And he's introducing this. The mom comes downstairs and she's like, what are you doing with her? They actually don't know what she's doing or what they're doing. They have no idea. They're caught off guard. They're surprised. They're shocked. They're kind of scared. Jonas says it's called dancing. And then all of a sudden the elder pops open. Can you see her right there in the middle? So she's a hologram, and she is invading their home, their house, their dwelling place, whatever you call it. She can just pop up in any place, into your home, anywhere. And that's technology that they have in their house that is supposed to benefit them, but can be used to spy on them as well at any moment. So she says, how's your training going, huh? Saw you riding a tray on the dome. What's going on? How's your training, huh? He's like, I'm fine. Fine, everything's cool. She's like, I'm kind of concerned about the giver or the other receiver. Many years ago, there was an incident. Living alone in a building on the edge can isolate a person. Now, do you see what's going on here? We're talking about truth seekers. We're talking about truth seekers in our world. Oftentimes, we actually do live alone. And oftentimes, we do kind of live out on the edge or on the outskirts or whatnot, right? We don't tend to be super social. Some of us are, which is awesome. Super proud of all of you. I'm not. I haven't really been. But because of that, they use that and they create a stigma that there's something off, something wrong about you. And by extension, you are now immoral. You're a bad person is what that they're trying to make that out to be, when that's not the case. She's trying to twist reality she has this team mentality where she wants everyone to be on her team. Jonas, what do you and the receiver actually do? She has no idea. She wants to know. What is it that you guys are doing down there, right? And he says, I'm not allowed to tell you that, right? That's my rules. I'm not allowed to tell you what we do. I'm not allowed to tell people about my training. Even though he's literally teaching this little girl to dance and he's trying to like share memories with the girl that he has a crush on, he tells the chief elder, I'm not supposed to talk about that, right? Because he knows, he senses somewhere deep down, this is a bad person. This is not I can sense it. You want to know what I'm doing and you're going to use that information for something bad, right? My rules say I'm not allowed to talk to it. Now this girl who's totally like a government worshiping drone is like, she's the chief elder. Forget the rules. All of a sudden the rules don't apply. See, these people are so messed up mentally that they love the rules. When the government is like, hey, pay your taxes, that's the rule. They're like, oh, okay, I paid my taxes. And they brag about it and they wear a sticker and stuff. But the moment that they're asked to break the rules, if it's for the same slave driver, the chief elder, you better break the rules for the chief elder, right? You see, it's just very hypocritical. I'm surprised that you're not more worried about him, mother, right? And then she's like, oh my God. Oh my God. And she cares a lot about what other people think of her. Hey, Fault Line Spin. Good to see you. Welcome to my channel. She says, were he my responsibility, I would be. Now, see, this is just witchcraft, okay? This is spellcraft. This is all that's happening. She's trying to cast a spell into Katie Holmes's mind, or whatever her name is, to say that what you're doing is wrong. You're a bad person if you don't control that kid like I would. Basically, if I was the mother, I would be doing this, and you're not doing that. So what does that say about you? This is all spellcraft and manipulation. Okay, it's not reality. It's not real. So if someone does this to you, realize that you have entered into a wizard's duel. You get to be the very best he says. He's just telling a story, but listen to this story. It's a little side story that he tells, right? You get to be the very best, the last one at the top of the mountain. Makes the pyramid shape again, right? The last one at the top of the mountain, gasping for air, having survived, and be alone. Gasping for air, like the air has been sucked out or removed, having survived the plasma apocalypse at the mountain, at the top of the mountain, Mount Meru, Hod Mimi's Holt, the Garden of Eden, right? What else? Did I miss anything there? Let me just go back real quick. No. All right, let's move forward. So he tells him, be curious. So this guy's kind of setting it up. If you've seen my breakdown of Dark City, right? Remember there was the sort of mad scientist guy who was putting all these memories. He was leaving little suggestions for him, which was actually his training, because he could recall all these tiny little breadcrumbs, these little nuggets, like be curious. He's giving him permission to be curious, right? Because curiosity will open doors if you pursue it, right? They say curiosity killed the cat. Well, you know what? That's the cat. That's the cat's fault. Whatever the cat did, okay? It doesn't mean curiosity is going to kill you, right? It just means it killed that cat. I don't like that saying, so I don't do the whole curiosity killed the cat. I feel the opposite. I feel like curiosity opens doors. I feel like curiosity sparks innovation and leads us on expeditions into the unknown to discover new things. Curiosity killed the cat. And he says, don't accept what is the truth just because it's coming from someone that you respect. Don't accept the truth. Thank you, Jedi. Don't accept the truth just because it's coming from someone that you respect. Don't accept, just because you respect somebody or because they're in a position of authority, don't tell yourself to automatically accept everything they say as being truth. Research it. Find out for yourself. Be an explorer, right? Otherwise, you're just following someone else's path, and that means you're going to go wherever they're going. Memories are not just about the past. They determine our future. You can change things. You can make things better. You see what he's saying? This is what we're doing right now. God, I'm getting excited. I got to stand up. This is what we're doing right now. Hold on. I got to move all this real quick. I don't want to sit down. So this is what we're doing. We are talking about and forcing ourselves to remember the past, right? To expose and uncover what we call and what's been dubbed our hidden history so that we can change it. We don't like the world we live in right now, right? I mean, I don't. I've heard from many of you that you don't either, right? If we learn about our real, true past, it will give our present meaning and our future will have purpose. And you're able to change your actions in the now to change the outcome of the future. That's why this is so important. Okay, let me take a seat now. Thank you. All right. Sorry. Not really, but I apologize. No, I don't. You can make things better. That's the good news. Oh, I got to turn that down a bit. There we go. All right, you can make things better. That's such the good news. That's why the pain is worth it. As a truth seeker, okay? Going through all of the trials and tribulations, being made fun of, being kicked when you're down, having people insult you and make you look like some wacko loony who lives on the fringe and on the edge. And, you know what I mean? There's other terrible things that happen. This is why it's worth it. Keep walking. Just keep going. You'll get to the middle of the maze and you'll be able to change the future. All right, so they sit together in the middle of that star once more. Oh, this is actually, he showed him war. I didn't want to show the whole war scene, but he accidentally showed him war because he was having a flashback or something, and he grabbed Jonas and he showed him humans killing each other. And Jonas was just devastated. He was heartbroken. He showed him this elephant that got shot, right? And how people used to kill majestic and beautiful animals just to rip out their teeth and sell them to other people because they're rare. I understand why Jonas cried. I understand why his heart was so broken. There he was in the midst of it, watching, nothing he could do about it because he's reliving a memory. And Jonas is just screaming, no, don't. And they shoot this elephant. Now, we go back to Jonas's room in his dwelling place. Look at his wall. A black square with a tree of light in the middle. A black square, also known as a black container or a black box or an enclosure that is dark, a dark city. That's our world, basically, symbolically speaking, with the tree of life right there in the middle. And that makes many appearances as well, just like in the baby's room. Right there, you've got the tree of life. And he says, hey, this comfort object, it's totally not a hippo. I wonder if an elephant is even an elephant, right? If we even think that many of these animals are what we've been taught that they are, or if we just take them for granted, right? Some of these animals look real strange and real alien and real interesting. And I just can't see them just poofing into existence. I can't see them just all coming from some soupy sludge. I think they have backstories. And I like to create those backstories for them. All right, so he says, this is an elephant, okay? It's not a hippo. And once it was real. He's talking about a legend. In their world, in the movie world, this is a myth. It's a legend. It doesn't exist. It's fantasy. But he's saying, hey, it's not fantasy. This really existed. And then he shows him. He shares a memory, right? He shows him that this was a big, huge, beautiful, majestic creature. And the baby loves it. So then he goes to his dinner where they're all supposed to be sharing their feelings. And he's like, Father, do you love me? And then the dad is like, he's not really his dad. He's just assigned to him, right? The dad's like, and the mom's like, precision of language, right? What? And then the girl's like, what does love mean? They've never even heard that word before. Jonas used a word that is so antiquated that it no longer has any application. The word love had been outlawed, right? Expressing those strong general feelings of like, I care so deeply for you, right? That had become against the rules. So they forgot what love was. And so, this is the war scene. So I guess I skipped that part. But after he's shown the war scene and Jonas is like relives memories of killing people and stuff, he walks through this park area where all these people are playing and they have a ball. As you can see, there's the ball right there, right? And they're playing some sports and stuff. They're throwing balls around back and forth. He says, I wanted my childhood again. Back then, we played war, right? They played war, which means they pretended to go to war with one another. As he's talking about playing war, they're showing you children playing with a ball, playing sports. This is the world that you live in today, okay? Sports, for the most part, all of them, okay? There's probably exceptions. But sports are practice for war. That's all they are. They're to get you excited about a war type of mentality. When sports, when there is no war, is stupid. Because you could just share the goddamn ball or the hockey puck or whatever it is, the birdie, whatever. Like, you could just share it. You don't need to fight over it. You don't need to get yours to their side and stuff. That's all war. It's all practice and playing war. Which is why, when I came to that realization, I kind of shied away from sports. I used to be the biggest sports fan in the world, but not so much anymore. I do enjoy sport, or I do enjoy exercise. I do enjoy pretending and stuff like that. It's totally fun. There should be a balance there, right? All right. I digress. Let's keep going. Jonas is talking to Fiona and he says, what do you think would happen if you skipped your morning injection? Then the sensor would blink and remind me that I forgot it, she says. He's like, no. I don't mean forgot. I mean, like, what do you think would happen if you chose not to be injected? Let me say that one more time. What do you think would happen if you chose not to be injected? Jonas in the movie says. What do you think would happen, huh? If you chose not to be injected? There's something wrong. Everything is wrong. And he's like, I'm just going to quit, man. This is overwhelming. She's like, if you quit your position, you'll get sent to elsewhere. You'll get killed, basically, if you quit your job. That's kind of like what it is in our world, too. Basically, if you quit your slave job, you're facing death. That's a death penalty. You're not going to have any money. You can't buy any food. It's illegal to be homeless and to sleep in a tent outside on the earth, right? That's a death penalty if you quit your job. Same thing in this structure. It's just the opposite extreme. So he gives her an apple. He says, look, just pretend like this apple's your hand, put it on the injector, and let the apple do the work. Don't take the injection in the morning, because he wants her to feel again, right? This is also the Adam and Eve symbolism. He wants to share what he knows with her through the conduit of the apple, or sharing a meal together, right? Now we go back into that piano room where Jonas is getting some more training about hearing beyond. And we see these holograms of Jeff Bridges. See, there's the real one and there's the hologram. And then the prior student before Jonas. This is the girl that they had the incident with, right? So let's learn more about her real quick. He says, I only gave her pleasant memories, beautiful memories, but she no longer exists. I gave her loss too soon, right? That's what happens to a lot of truth seekers. For us, if we get too much of the bad, because remember, this world likes to focus on the bad. So even as a truth seeker, when you start coming to all these revelations of, hidden history or whatever it may be, whatever topic it is, you still have to beware, because you have the conditioning that says focus on the bad, right? This world wants chaos. Like the energy that is in this world right now wants anxiety, wants depression, all the bad stuff. So even as a truth seeker, when you come to the light, I, at first, focused only on the bad. And that's still a war that I'm fighting, just to be honest, right? To get rid of the bad, to stop focusing on the bad and to focus on the good and to balance the bad, because now you're not overwhelmed. You've got to look for the good. You've got to have hope. You've got to have a childlike mindset. You need to play. We need these things. Jokey. Oh, thank you, Jokey. I appreciate you. All right, so he gave her loss too soon. And he says the light went from her eyes. The light going from a person's eyes means that they are dying. Okay? You can see when a person is dying. You can see when the light is starting to escape, when their energy is starting to escape. They give up. The truth seekers that focus only on the bad stuff, they get depressed, they get anxiety, they get sad, they constantly feel overwhelmed, and then eventually they take their own lives because they don't see any hope. They have no hope. They just feel like this place sucks. Everyone sucks. I know I don't suck, but everyone in the world is making me feel like I suck. So I'm out. Just keep walking. Trust me. I'm going through it. I've been through it. And I listen to the song of the world, and the world says, keep going. You're doing a good job. I know it's tough. Keep going. The next morning, without telling me, she went to the chief elder and asked to be released. Oh, released to elsewhere. Okay, cool. Well, now she's in a better place. Elsewhere? He's like, now she lives in elsewhere. That's cool. And he's like, that's right. You don't know what elsewhere is. He's like, I would like to see this morning's release. And then they show the baby. I did not show this whole scene because it breaks my heart too much, and I don't want to share that with you. But basically, it shows Jonas's assigned father. Remember, he works in that hospital with the babies. The babies that don't meet the criteria, like weighing enough or babies that cry too much, they are released to elsewhere, which means that they take an injection at the top of the head and they are killed and they die. And Jonas watches through this hologram and he's like, that's death. And then the other truth seeker, the giver, is like, he doesn't know that that's death. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's like, he doesn't know what he's doing. How can he not see that the baby isn't moving? Doesn't that tell him that something is wrong? He's like, we are the only ones who understand it. These people, the drones of life, the people who are sleepwalkers out there in the world, we see them doing bad things. We see them poisoning themselves, poisoning other people. We see all of the bad things in the world. And we are the only ones who understand that it is bad. To them, it's normal to sit in front of the TV for 6.5 hours, or to eat poison, or to hurt each other and then laugh, or to, you know what I mean? We see the bad and we see the reality, but they're blind to it. That's their way of life. So Jonas takes accountability and he says, then it's our fault. You and me and all the receivers back and back and back and back. There has to be a way to show them. And I like that he does this and takes accountability. He's like, we're the ones with the knowledge, right? This is our fault. Why are we not telling everybody? I understand his zeal, but I also understand the wisdom of the giver. The giver understands that if you do try to go tell everyone, they're so devoted to the system that they were raised in that they would turn on you. They would not believe you, just like Neo in the Matrix. They're all possible agents of the Matrix, and he understands this. But Jonas is like, no, man, no, we end this now. Like, we're fixing this. He says we have to give them back their memories so that they can understand. Because if you can't feel, what's the point? What's the point if you can't feel? If you're numb, you're basically dead if you can't feel. You're a walking corpse if you can't feel. And I don't mean sense things with your skin. I mean to feel with your spirit. Right? But what can you do? They're asking you. What can you do? Not what can't you do? What can you not do? Nobody wants to know what you cannot do about something. What can you do? Right? I've talked about people. I've spoken with people and shared the knowledge of the apocalypse and the cyclical resetting of the world and stuff. And people give up immediately. They're like, "Oh, I guess I'm just gonna die. Well, I guess I'm screwed or whatever." Like, no. What can you do? Right? Don't ask me what you should do. Tell me what you can do. Be a yes man, I guess. To quote another movie, like, be positive. What can you do? So he takes the baby in the hologram, tosses him in the trash, basically. The trash is elsewhere. Uncertain. I should write that on my trash. Now that I think about it, I'm going to put elsewhere on my trash. Uncertain was returned to the nurturing center because he wants to know where Gabe is. So she calls him Uncertain instead of Gabe. Well, he failed the test of maturity again, so I'm going to have to release him to elsewhere. So the baby Gabe is going to get killed the next day. And Jonas, he says, Father, he didn't know any better, but I did. Right? Like, to those of us who understand, whatever we know, we're held accountable for. Right? If other people are ignorant and they don't know, oh well, that's on them. But I am not ignorant. I have a certain knowledge. I mean, I'm also ignorant to a certain extent, but to those things that I am not ignorant to, I now have accountability. I now have a purpose. I now have a reason because I have this knowledge to help, to give. He says, if it's the right thing to do, Jonas is trying to leave the community. Now, Asher is totally programmed by the system. He's a little drone pilot. He got the job that he always wanted, so he's super happy to be a part of the system. And he's like, hey, you're leaving? If it's the right thing to do, how can it be against the rules? Good question, Asher. If it is the right thing to do, it could be against the rules because the rules are bad. The rules are wrong. The rules are immoral. Just because something is a rule does not establish morality at all. So he grabs the baby. He's going to try to save Gabe before they send him elsewhere. He grabs the baby. He runs to the giver's library or whatever. He says, Giver, wake up. And the giver says, I'd have to be sleeping to wake up. I like that because one, it's a joke like he can't sleep. He's a truth seeker. Many of us, we stay up all night long just staring at the ceiling or whatever, cleaning house. I don't know, doing whatever you do. I study, whatever. He's like, I'd have to be sleeping to wake up. He tells the one who is already awake, spiritually, knowledge-wise, or whatever, he says to wake up. He's like, I'm already awake, buddy. You can talk to me, right? All the memories can be returned. I need to leave the community. Now, this is where it gets personal because that's going to be your decision, all right? I'm not here to gather a bunch of people to tell you all that you should do this and we should all do this or whatever. But this will be a personal decision. There is an expedition that is taken by various people who are known as the Lost Tribes. They return to the door. They return to the triangle of rocks. They go back to a place of safety to escape the cataclysm that happens. That will be your choice. Jonas says, I need to get out of here. I have to leave the community. Now, time out. Real quick. Remember, in the world we live in today, we are at that point where the lost tribes of the world will reunite, that they will gather together on a trek to go to the place of safety to ride out the apocalypse. But this is the future. This is the red sky. Remember? We're talking about the next era, the next epic, the next age. Okay? We're looking into our own future where the red sky has already happened, where the blue beam already comes up, right? And they're living at the North Pole already in some perfect society that's at its extreme end and about to come to its own end, right? He has to go outward to survive. He has to go outward to save the world instead of going inward because he's already there, right? So there's this flux where the truth seekers, they expand and they contract. They are separated and then they're returned and they get back together. So that's kind of what you're looking at right now. He says, I need to find the boundary of memory and cross it. We have boundaries in this world that we need to cross. He says, slowly. He says, I can't wait anymore. If you had that map, then why didn't you try to leave? He says, I was waiting for someone like you. If you did cross this boundary, and if the memories were set free, it would all return. So you would stay here to help them? That's the reason why this giver, right, or receiver of memory, why he hasn't already done it. He already had the idea, but he needed another. He needed a helper. There needs to be those who stay to help everyone, because think about what he's the only one who understands what the transition is going to be like. He's going to be there to help them to handle all of their new ways of life and memories and all this stuff, right? But then there are those who need to go. There are those who need to stay and those who need to go. Jonas needs to go. This Jeff Bridges needs to stay. If you go, head towards the triangle. Talking to you. If you go, head towards the triangle, the mountain, right? Away from the other communities. So if that is our world and we look at our world, then he's telling us to go to some sort of triangle object that is away from all the other communities. So it's not a part of any country that is established, right? It would be a neutral area, like Antarctica and like the North Pole. That will lead, by the way, I just had this thought too. If there is some sort of World War III type of event in the future, I imagine it could be instigated and started over bickering about who owns the North Pole. Actually, I just had that idea. Anyways, he says that will lead to the boundary of memory. So if you go to the Triangle of Rocks, that will lead you to the boundary of memory. The Triangle of Rocks represents Mount Meru at the middle of our world. Now, if you remember in the tall grass, when we broke that down, the grass was the labyrinth. The grass was the shifting maze. And at the middle of that maze of grass in that movie was a black rock. And there was even a church in the movie dedicated, like the Church of the Black Rock or whatever, right? And when you touch the black rock, electricity shot through the person that made their hair stand up on edge. And that person all of a sudden had all of this knowledge and secrets imparted to them. It also amplified their energy. Anyway. He says, Jonas, not yet. You're not ready. You're not ready, right? This guy's trying to tell him he's not ready. Listen to what Jonas says. When they decided to kill Gabe, they decided I was ready. Bravo. Well said, my boy. Because that is passion, and that is the truth. We do not decide when we are ready. As a matter of fact, you won't be ready. I'm going to tell you right now. All of my research indicates that you're never ready. You have to learn through experience. You have to jump into the fire. And usually when the time comes that you're going to go, it's because the world has given you no other choice. It's time to go. You don't mind if I accelerate your training a bit, do you? So boom, they hold hands, he zaps him. Now he's putting all this survival imagery into his mind so that he can survive extreme temperatures, leaps of faith that he might need to take, deserts, how to make a fire, how to survive in the cold, the strength that he has inside to keep tanks and armies and stuff away, as you see the, what is it called, Tillman Square or whatever guy. And then, unfortunately, this girl cannot go. So Jonas is sad about his crush not being able to go with him. And that's another thing, too, is like some people might just insist on taking family or whatever. That might not work. I don't know. For some it may, for some it may not. But you can't force a person. Anyway, so Jonas jumps on his bike. He's headed towards the edge, which is right on the other side of his little house there, right? All these biker dudes are chasing him. He's going towards the edge and boom, jumps off of the edge, takes a leap of faith, lands in elsewhere. And then the computer says, subject lost to the edge. And says lost to the edge. So they stop their search, at least publicly. They stop looking for Jonas. Jonas says, when I went over the edge, we shouldn't have made it. This was a miracle. When he jumped over the edge, he should have been dead. That's the leap of faith. There's always a leap of faith whenever you have these movies that are about making this trek to the North Pole or leaving the North Pole, which is what I believe that we're watching right now. So that's the leap of faith. Why is it a leap of faith? Because gravity acts kind of funny, or the electromagnetics, etc. There's all different reasons, but basically it looks like if you jump, you're going to fall to your death. But you float, and you need to jump far out so that you can land properly and land the right way. Otherwise, you'll probably just tumble. And you learn how to do it when you do it a few times. No one ever makes the first jump. This was a miracle. Boom. So now you can see, starting to see this. Let's talk about those colors, okay? Now that we're on the sun, I got to stand up again. I want to talk about these colors. Remember, I said that we're talking about there's a blue sky and a red sky, right? And in the movie, we're looking at our future in its extreme version under the red sky, the black and white world, the red sky or whatever, right? Like when you look at the ocean, the blue ocean, remember how the blue in that picture under the red light was black? The ancient ocean was described as being black with a slight reflection of red because of the light from above. The water reflected that red, but it was wine dark. That's where you get that. So that sky is red, blanketed in red. But it doesn't always stay red, right? Slowly, those conditions start to change. So, for example, the first giver, the first color he saw was yellow. That's because after he came out of the red world, where it was all in black and white, right? He went into this world with the point of focus up there, the sun, right? But it wasn't white to begin with. It didn't start off in a blindingly white shade. It was like an orange shade that turned into like a yellow, like a dark yellow shade, basically, right? That's why that giver, his first color that he saw was yellow, because that sunlight starts off as yellow. And many of you remember the sun being yellow. I do. Okay? The sun is not yellow in these days. It is white, and it is almost starting to turn slightly bluish white. But that's why that other giver first saw the color yellow, because that's how the age that he entered into, that's how that age started off, okay? The sunlight started off very yellow. People drew the sun as being yellow, solid, orangey kind of a yellow. Then more of a brighter, lighter yellow. Then basically stopped being yellow altogether, and now it's white, and then it shifts into a blue. Why? Because the sun gets hotter. The light up there, the point of focus, gets hotter and hotter and hotter. Whenever it's not so hot, it gives off a color in the yellow spectrum. When it gets hotter, it gives off a white color. When it gets even hotter than that, it gives off a blue color, which is the portion and the breadcrumb of truth that we're taught in academics about how the suns work out there in the galaxy. We know that those suns, those stars, the blue ones, are super hot, right? And then when they're red, they're cooler and they're not so hot or whatever, right? Anyways, it's the same concept. It's just slightly different than what we have been taught. Actually, it's very different, but it is slightly related. Anyways, so that's why Jonas sees red at first. Okay, that's the first color he sees, because he represents going into the red world, and you can see all the red. That's the only color that people will see is red. But then that starts to change over time, and you could start to see a shade of like green, right? All of a sudden, people will see green. The last color they will see is blue. So, anyways, let's move forward. All right, so they're like Jonas. They're having a funeral, a ceremony of release to elsewhere for Jonas, because they all watched him on live TV jump off a cliff. He survived, but they're all pretending like he didn't, because they don't know where he is. He went to elsewhere. Now, the chief elder walks up to Jonas's friend Asher, and she says, "What I'm about to tell you, you must never repeat to anyone." I don't believe that Jonas is lost. And when she says lost, she means dead. I don't believe that Jonas is dead. She just had a funeral for him, right? He goes, "But what about the ceremony of loss? Like, we just had a funeral. What do you mean he's not dead?" She's like, "It was a charade. It was pretense, right? But you must know that Jonas has become dangerous." Now check this out. This happens in our world, where there are certain people that come to a certain knowledge, or they break certain contracts or agreements that they have had with certain individuals, and they become dangerous to those individuals. And then they die an early death, or they have a funeral for them and they're not really dead. They're just gone. They took off, right? They know where to go and they went there. And so the rest of the world is like, "Oh, poor, he was only 33 years old and he died in a car crash or whatever. Oh man, and so was this guy, and so was that guy, and so was that guy." I don't know. I think that people break these contracts that they make, and then they have these funerals for them, and they're not really dead, right? They escape, or they're allowed, or they're released, possibly. They might be released from their contracts or whatever they are. Okay, man, that's kind of a long one. I hope you guys don't mind. All right, but let's keep on going. He must not get beyond the triangle of rocks. So basically they're like, you must not let these people get to Mount Meru, right? So by the way, if you're going to do an expedition to Mount Meru in the future and you want to like go on a trek and stuff and, you know, try to find the place of safety, as I've been sort of recalling it and stuff, I don't recommend publicly announcing it. Don't think that's a super good idea. I say just do it. Just go. Set it all up. But I would be a little bit more wise about sharing the news if I was you. Anyways, because there's people like this out there, basically. "I want you to find him." Then we see Jonas. The batteries ran out. He's taken off. He's on his way to the middle of the world, Mount Meru. Or inversely, in his world, under the red sky, symbolically, he's leaving. He's leaving the middle of the world. He's leaving the North Pole, essentially. All right, so this guy is in black and white. See how Jonas is in color? Because he's full-on truth seeker, full-on sees all the differences and stuff. He's going into a different part of the world. This guy still sees in black and white. He's operating the drone deal. The drone comes in. You can see the triangle of rocks right there, acting as a doorway, which he flies his drone right through. The god of doors, Janus, once again. Now check this out. This drone has a tractor beam. And I sort of took like some quick images so you can get the idea. This is not fiction, okay? I just want to make this very clear. I did a whole video about getting sucked up into the sky recently. It's just like a 5-minute video about how everything gets sucked up into the sky. Everything starts to float. And one of those possibilities has to do with vibration and acoustics and sonic waves, right? Which all you need is something to bounce sonic waves off of from top to bottom, and you can manipulate what is in the middle. You can take an object, you can levitate it, you can bring it up, you can push it down, exactly what you're looking at right here. So for example, the aircraft itself acts as what is keeping that resonance between the earth and the aircraft, right? It just is bouncing sound waves up and down at certain frequencies that lock onto Jonas, as long as they have his coordinates, right? And they're able to lock his body, basically, and manipulate it and move it in the air. It's not fiction, okay? It's not magic. It's just, it's I don't know what to call it, but it's real, okay? It does exist. Anyway, so this guy picks up Jonas, tries to do him a favor by just dropping him and the baby into this river, hoping that they'll survive, which is kind of ridiculous to me because he could have just flown him like wherever he wanted to go. But I guess he didn't want to get in trouble, so, you know, he dropped him into the river. But the river is where he needed to go anyway, right? Because they always talk about in the movies, like, take the river, head north on the river, or whatever. They always, like, follow a river. Nothing the giver had shown me had prepared me for the voices in my head, screaming at me to stop. Nothing that I can tell you or anyone else will prepare you for the voices that you will have in your head. Those feelings of regret, of I wish I could get plugged back into the matrix, of maybe you should just, you know, not go on this expedition, not go onto the North Pole, not, you know, maybe stop researching, maybe just go back to having a slave job and just be accepted by everyone, etc. These are the voices that we battle daily. And they get fainter and fainter the more you battle them. That's the good news. But I knew Fiona would be punished for helping me, Asher for letting me go. The only way to help them is to keep them alive was to get to the boundary. It's the only way to help those people, right? You can't take them with you. The only way to help out the future of this world is for you to stay safe, is for you to be healthy mentally and physically and spiritually and emotionally. That's the only way to help all those other people out there, because ultimately a person can only help themselves. And the more you help yourself, the brighter your light shines, and the easier others can see it, because you'll light the path. Even if it existed, he said. He has no idea if the boundary existed. He's going off of a map that fell out of a book from some dude that he just met, right? but it resonates with him. He knows it exists. He feels it. But he has to say it might not. Like, I could be doing all of this and just die in the desert. No idea. There might not be a boundary, right? But he knows it. He feels it. He says, I strengthened Gabe, giving him memories of having enough and knowing joy. When you're on this trek, when you're going through, let's say that you survived the apocalypse or whatnot, I believe one of the best survival methods is to have your happy thought. I kid you not. I mean, obviously you need water. Obviously you need to breathe. Stuff like that is very important. But having something to inspire you, to encourage you, and most importantly, to keep your mind right, you need to lock on to like a handful of happy thoughts. So that's what he did for Gabe. He gave him some happy thoughts, having enough, being satisfied, right? Not wanting, not lacking, not desiring, not feeling that you don't have when you do. He gave him the satisfaction of having enough and knowing joy. It was the memory of Fiona that kept me going, he says, right? So she's his happy thought, you know, he loves her. He's in love with her. So she's the happy thought. Now check this out. This is Fiona, like in present day. This is a memory that he has. This is his happy thought. This is the way he sees her. This is the way she really is, her true self on the inside. This is the way you really are on the inside. This is you in the world we live in today. And this is me in the world I live in today. This is JayDreamerZ in this world. This is JayDreamerZ in the world to come. This is you in today's world, but on the inside, this is you. We need to reconcile the two of these, okay? This is the world where they want you to take your injections and suppress your feelings and your emotions, etc. This is you saying no. Just thought I'd throw that out there. We've arranged for your release. Oh, she's so excited. Katie Holmes freaking gets to arrange for the release of her own friend or whatever. She goes, I know that there's something more. Emmy Wolf. Hey, thank you. Something that has been stolen from me. I know that there's something more. Something that's been stolen from me. I know that too. I know that there's something more and something that's been stolen from me, stolen from us. I don't know what it is exactly, but Jonas does. She recognizes that the truth seeker seeks and sees the truth. And he's shared that with her. He's given her a glimpse of that. And so here's Jonas coming up to the mountainous regions. Goes up into the snowy areas. It's getting cold. He's like, where's the tower, Gabe? Where is this place, right? You keep on going on these types of expeditions to safe havens from the apocalypse, basically. Or to doorways to other worlds, the inner world and the extra world or the outer world. You might feel like it just goes on forever. You might feel like you're never going to get there. But that's why it says keep going, keep walking, don't stop. You will get there. You see, the secret is that some things are invisible. Some things have qualities where it seems like it goes on forever, but it doesn't. It's an illusion. There are illusions in this world. He says, where's the tower, Gabe? The tower should be here. Now we go back to Fiona, who's about to get injected with the death penalty. And the guy is all, are you uncomfortable? Everything good? Are you cool? You want a water before you die? Like before I send you to elsewhere? She's like, I'm not uncomfortable. I'm afraid. Right? Like she knows that she's about to die. He says, you don't have to be afraid. You know me. Be careful. Be careful around friends. Be careful around family. Right? This is one of the first things that people try to do whenever they're locked into the system. They try to use that against you and say, hey, you know me. I wouldn't tell you to do this if I didn't think that it was good. Your best intentions can have the worst outcomes. Let yourself be tempered with reason. Let your passion be tempered by reason, right? Just being passionate and thinking that we're so right or that we care about someone so much that we must be doing something good for them doesn't always end up good for them. So be careful. He says, I'll be very gentle, right? This is just like if you're at the dentist's office or the doctor's office or so many other places, right? And they lie to people and people believe them. They say, oh, just hold still, you know, this is for your health. This is going to make you, I'm so proud of you. You're so brave. And they lie. God, do they lie. So this girl, the giver's looking at this. He's like, why are you letting this happen? She says, people are weak. People are selfish. When people have the freedom to choose, they choose wrong every single time. But is that true? No, it can't be. There's balance. There's just extremes. She is recalling our world, our extreme time that we live in today, and she's applying that to everyone that ever lived. That's a fallacy in thought. We shouldn't do that. There are exceptions. There are anomalies. There is a balance between the two. She didn't want one extreme, so she took the other extreme. Right? It's not true. Yes, the world we live in sucks sometimes. Yes, many people can let us down, but not everyone does. Not everyone is bad. Not everyone is selfish. There are good people out there, and you will recognize them because you will feel it and sense it when you get close to them. All right, so Jonas passes out because he's cold and tired. Wakes up looking at the sky. Oh, snow. Oh, there's a sled. This is all looking strangely familiar, except I have a baby with me this time. So now Jonas jumps onto the sled with the baby. We go back to the death penalty scene where the giver says, we are living a life of shadows, of echoes, of faint, distant whispers of what once made us real. That is my message to all of you today. That is the world that we live in, a shadow world. Thankfully, we can appreciate some of the beautiful things that we have, like color. Look at all the color on my channel. I love it, right? But the potential has passed. We are now entering into the extremity, right? So we go back to Jonas. He's having a blast, riding the sled with the baby. He passes the boundary. This is one of those towers that he was looking for. It's in the movie, it looks like it's got some sort of an invisible sort of like energy barrier around it. And he comes up on it, and the second he gets through it, boom, there's this bluish white beam of light that sort of shoots out from it. As you can see, that beam of light shoots out and it goes all the way to the community, turning everything into color. The needle was just about to hit this girl's arm, and all of a sudden, just in the nick of time, this guy's senses return to him. So he drops the needle and the color starts to return to the world. Or, symbolically, they go through their own apocalypse, where they shift from a red sky into a focal point sky that allows you to see the different colors, right? They can be split into all the different colors. And Jonah says, I wish I had been there when the memories returned. They were the truth. Those memories are the truth. That's why I like to talk about these ancient memories. I don't want to talk about history. History is boring, man. History is just a story that someone else told and made up and insists that I believe in. I want to talk about hidden history. I want to talk about where the pyramids came from, why the Moai in Easter Island are sink down into the ground, how ancient megalithic structures were created, possibilities of giants and superheroes and supervillains and electric skies. You know what I mean? Like, these are real memories that we have, that we share, because I listen to all of you. And I've heard your dreams, and I've heard your stories, and I've heard your thoughts that you have shared, and I can see how similar we all are, that it's all right there on the verge, on the fringe of our minds. And it's getting ready to explode. It's getting ready to burst, where people won't be able to help it. I think stuff like this actually does happen. There is a fog that has wiped our memories. There is an energy that is suppressing, and there is a pressure that is weighing in on us on all sides. And one day that fog will lift. That pressure will be removed. And as it says in the Bible, something to the effect of, right now we see into a mirror dimly. We're looking blurry. We have a blurry face. We're looking into the mirror dimly. We don't see things clearly. It's all out of focus. But the time will come when this energy bursts forth through the world. Literally energy, plasma, right? Spirit. And because we share the energy of the world, that means that we become enlightened. We become knowledgeable. Our memories return to us, just like if you were to touch the black rock, right, in the tall grass. Anyways, he says those memories were the truth. The elders and their rules, that was the lie. Those were the lies. The elders, the people who say that they are in charge and they'll help us out because there's somebody and you're not somebody. You can't take care of yourself and they can take care of you as long as you give up your freedoms, as long as you follow our rules, our guidelines. Those are the lies. So I do not apologize. And his sled ends up at a house, decorated with Christmas lights. A home, actually, with a real family. People who hug and hold hands and sing and eat meals together. He said it was real. And they're singing Christmas songs. Why? Because this is the Christmas Day catastrophe, right? This is the winter solstice apocalyptic event. It's the opposite of the summer solstice one. And they're singing their Christmas songs. Jonas walks up and he says, far behind me, from the place that I had left, I thought I heard music too. Perhaps it was only an echo, but it was enough. It would lead us all home. He's talking about hearing an echo of the truth of our past through the music. What if, I've heard so many different people, all these truth seekers, they recognize, when they're little baby truth seekers, they recognize that there's all this symbolism that's clearly hidden in plain sight, as they say, in all of these songs, in movies, in music videos and stuff, right? And they recognize that there's some sort of truth that's being rubbed in our face. What if it's not being rubbed in your face? What if it's not the truth being hidden in plain sight? What if you were just ignorant and blind to it the entire time, and there is a group of people out there trying to give you the answers and share with you the truth, but they have their own guidelines and they can't just come out and tell you, so they have to tell you in story form. And maybe what was once considered to be myth and legend and fictitious, those things are the reality. And when we return to those things, we'll find our way home. All right, well, that was The Giver. I hope you guys had a great time. I did. I love this movie. We're going to break down some more stuff. This weekend, we're going to do a couple of special presentations. One's going to be Amnesia Island. So it's very similar to this concept. The movie gave me the inspiration to do a presentation that I call Amnesia Island. And then I'm also going to break down, again, Black Hole Sun, the music video, and a couple of other videos and songs by 21 Pilots, specifically Chlorine from their new album Trench, which is also mind-blowing. I learned so many insane things about 21 Pilots and other groups too, but it gets deep. But yeah, Chlorine and Nico and the Niners. So keep your eye out for that. I hope you guys had a blast, had a good time. I hope you made some friends in the chat. And if you enjoyed what you saw, leave a comment and let me know. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
So hard to face.